ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 2 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. I gulped. There was a huge mob of reporters standing in front of the gates, worse than any swarm of skeletons my illusion barrier could spawn. Their large, beady, camera-like eyes turned to focus on me, and they lurched over to me in a single horde like ravenous, information-hungry zombies. "Young man, have you been in a class with All Might yet?" The leader of the pack asked me. "Eep," I said. Well, I was cut off from an oppressive feeling coming from my left. I turned to see Kakin glaring at the press gang. "We're going to class," Kakin said coldly. "Would you kindly F the hell off?" "Hey, weren't you that one boy from the Sludge Mon?" Kakin glared harder. "Actually, we were both involved in the sludge monster incident." I corrected. "Wasn't the other kid quirkless?" "My quirk is really weird, okay? I only really learned how to use it after that." Kakin angrily cleared his throat. "Now could we please get to our class?" he demanded. "But, pretty sure what you're doing is illegal," Kakin said. "And it's our job as heroes in training to report crimes in process, right?" I contributed. "Right, so how about you guys disperse before we go get one of our pro-hero teachers, who I'm willing to bet won't like how you won't let us through." "I really don't," Aizawa-sensei said from behind me. "Now please let my students go to their class, unless you have a genuine, valid reason to keep them from their education aside from I want to know how All Might teaches. If it's any consolation, he's nice and gave us some pointers on our quirks," I said. "You got your statement. Now let us through," Aizawa-sensei said. The crowd let us pass, though the lead reporter lady tried to chase us and was blocked by the security barrier. "What the hell is with that? I could have died." The reporter yelled. "That thing's meant to catch villains who try to enter." Kakin yelled. "If it comes down, that means you're trying to trespass." Aizawa-sensei sighed. "I'll deal with this. You to get to the classroom." Kakin and I summoned our elementals, causing some oohs and ahs from our classmates. "So these are our elementals," I said. They waved for the class, showing off a small application of their powers as well. "They're sort of like spirits made from a certain element of magic. I don't know if we create them or summon them from nature with the elemental ritual, and they don't seem to have any answers. My theory is that they do exist in nature, but without a summoner there too. Primordial, if that makes sense, to do anything. It's only by forming a contract with a summoner that they can take humanoid forms." "Any questions?" "They're so cute," Mina said. Pyra smiled. "That wasn't a question, but thank you," she said. "For whatever reason, they look like kids," Kakin said. "Apparently how powerful they are is dependent on skill level or something. Our elementals are actually at the second stage, or whatever. They looked even younger a couple months ago." Tokoyami walked up to me and bowed on one knee. "Honored keeper of ancient knowledge, wouldst thou teach me thy power?" he said in a dramatic voice. "What did I just listen to?" Kakin asked to nobody in particular. "Child of Shadow," I said, playing along with him. "Jesus Christ, Deku, what the actual F?" Kakin groaned. "Thou art but a fledgling in the ancient art of magic, yet thy drive to learn is great. How did you manage to audibly pronounce magic like that?" I continued despite Kakin's interruptions and the pop-up for magic words. "For thy great ambition, I bequeath upon thee this." I raised my hands into the air, using inventory to make a scroll slowly materialize from thin air, glowing with magical light. The scroll dropped into my hands, and I held it out to him. "Okay, so would anyone else like to point out that Dekka literally had that ready in advance?" Kakin asked. "I thank thee for the arcane knowledge thou hast granted upon me," Tokoyami said as he gingerly accepted the scroll from me. "Hey, fun fact, apparently words like thee and thou are actually informal, which makes this trash show a lot more stupid," Kakin said dourly. "My only request for thee is to share this arcanum among any of our peers who should ask for it," I told him. He bowed his head. "I solemnly swear it." He got up, gave me a small smile, and said, "And thank you for playing along." Right, that's it. I'm done. Taking a nap till Aizawa-sensei comes back, Kaken said, then sat down at his desk. Thanks for not yelling at me. Ida, he muttered before putting his head down. I've decided to not be too annoyed about that, so long as you don't curse too much when class is actually in session, Ida explained. Speaking of which, I believe we should take our seats soon. Aizawa shouldn't be too much longer. I've actually been here for all of Midoriya's speech. I just wanted to watch, Aizawa-sensei said from behind his desk, causing me to jump. Now where should you guys be right now? We all quietly took our seats. Good. Now, first I'd like to apologize if anyone was inconvenienced by the reporters outside. We're taking care of it. Next, I'd like to say that I saw the recordings from yesterday's Hero Basic class, and I have some notes. Off the top of my head, Todoroki, you should try to be a little more efficient. Maybe try freezing the room instead of the whole building next time. Mineta, actually try. If anyone wants notes in more detail, talk to me. Now, what we're doing today is going to decide your future. Everyone tensed up. You need to pick a class representative. And with that, the mood immediately lightened. Just about everyone raised their hands and asked to be class representative. It made sense. While being the class representative is normally a responsibility that people don't want, in the hero course it's a really good idea, because hero agencies tend to notice people who take responsibilities like that. Everyone, Ida shouted over the din. We need to work this over in an orderly fashion. Perhaps we should put this to vote. Don't we barely know each other? Azui asked. And won't everyone vote for themselves? All the better. Ida stated. Anyone who has already managed to gain the trust of enough people to get the most votes would most likely be the best candidate for class representative. After all of the votes were counted, the rankings were put on the board. How'd I get 4 votes? I asked. I really had no idea how that happened. I mean, I voted for Ida, right? Midoriya is the representative, and Ida and Yaoyorozu can figure out who's deputy between them, Aizawa-sensei said. After me, Ida and Yaoyorozu were tied for second place with 2 votes each. I love the food here, Uraraka said as she ate some rice. She, Ida, Kaken, and I were eating lunch together. You're literally eating only rice, Kaken said. Well, some of us are on a budget, Kaken, Uraraka said. Kaken twitched. Don't call me Kaken. And can you seriously not afford anything other than rice? Uraraka blushed. My parents don't really have too much money. It's already expensive enough for me to be here. Kaken sighed and got up. You're really going to make me buy you something, aren't you? She flailed her arms in front of her. No, you don't have to do that for me. You need to eat actual food, idiot. I don't want you to have to spend that much money just for me. Too bad, my mom's a model. Just about everything on the menu's chump change to me. Uraraka stopped her protesting and gasped. Your mom's Bakuga Mitsuki. How did I miss that? You guys are almost identical. If I know. Uraraka pressed her fingers together and blushed a little. You know, I kind of like to know how she looks that young. She's almost 40 and she's still pret. And I'm going to stop you right there before you start talking about how hot my mom, you just said looks like me is. It's weird enough when strangers do it. He sped off. I hope you like curry. To answer your question, though, I said after Kaken left, it's because her quirk, glycerin, makes her sweat moisturizer. I grinned a bit. It's actually a little interesting. While only the sweat from Kaken's hands explodes, the sweat all over his body is altered, which is apparently a leftover of his mom's quirk. Theoretically, Kaken will age about as well as his mom does thanks to that. I didn't know emitter quirks could be passed on like that, Ida said. I thought it was only mutation quirks that did that. No, emitter quirks can do that too, though it's normally a lot more subtle. Even though it's not my quirk, I'm actually heat resistant and have slightly more fire affinity because of my dad's fire breath, and my mother and I have more water affinity and can cry a lot thanks to her mother's quirk, ocular gushers, which let her shoot water from her tear ducts like some sort of reverse heat vision. I haven't figured out how to do it at will, though now that I think about it, I should probably be able to do it with magic. I felt my cheeks heat up at the looks they were giving me and chuckled a bit. I like talking about quirks. Uraraka smiled. I think it's pretty cool. Plus, Yui is definitely the kind of school to do that. Thanks, I said. Though how exactly do you know about Annie Mitsuki? No offense, but you don't exactly strike me as the type to really follow the fashion world. Uraraka blushed. Well, sometimes I just read the articles. For some reason, Rain randomly started cheering loudly. I jumped, and Blaze reassured me that she hadn't stabbed anyone or anything before I had to look for her. Are you okay, Midoriya? Ida asked. Oh, I'm fine, I smiled. Rain just started randomly cheering for some reason, so I had to make sure she didn't stab anything. She's really enthusiastic about stabbing things. That's a little disconcerting, Uraraka said. She also started gushing about you after seeing you for some reason. Uraraka stopped eating her rice and cleared her throat. Okay, so I'm a little uncomfortable now. Is there by any chance a way to detect elementals? I shrugged. I only know one detection spell, and it'd only work on tertiary elementals. Oh, by the way, while we're on the subject of tertiary elements, I have reason to believe gravity is one, so you might want to check that. Okay, I'll put that on my magic to-do list, right below detect elemental, she said, then began fiddling with her chopsticks. Hey, let's talk about something that doesn't involve an invisible, stab-happy spirit who likes to talk about me. Hey, Deku, your class rep now. Let's talk about how you got 2 other votes. What do you mean, 2 other votes? Ida asked. Well, Deku obviously voted for himself, and I voted for him too. So who were the other 2? Actually, I voted for Ida, I butted in, and if I had to guess, one of the votes for me was Tokoimi because I gave him that scroll. Among other things, DKU. I heard Kakin's voice from somewhere in the cafeteria. Dune giggled. Context. I roll my eyes. I suppose I should add that I voted for you, not myself, Ida added. And thank you for putting as much faith in me as I put in you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks to the both of you too, I grinned. Both of you voted for me, even though I don't think I really deserve it. Dude, you literally discovered magic, Uraraka said bluntly. I did it accidentally, and we only found out thanks to Kakin. You managed to discover magic without even meaning to, Uraraka shouted. I noticed that she put her chopsticks down, and they had a glowing pink aura around them. She grinned and put her hand on a rice bowl. Speaking of which, she said, then her rice bowl started glowing pink too. Ida, pick up my rice bowl. Ida tried to pick up the rice, but gave up after struggling a bit. Did you amplify the gravity on your rice? He asked. I picked up her chopsticks, which felt like they were made of lead, and used F detection on it. I think she did. This is pretty cool, Uraraka. Some alarms blared, causing me to drop the really heavy chopsticks. Warning. Level 3 security breach, a voice said from the same speakers that the alarms were coming from. What's that mean? I asked. This is the first time I've actually heard this alarm, and I'm a 3rd year. A student near us shouted over the racket. It means there's an intruder. Everyone started panicking and stampeded to the exit, and I was swept away from my friends in the tide of students despite my high STR stat. Guys, I try to shout over the noise. Someone could get seriously hurt if we keep doing this. I tried some more, but I just couldn't get anyone to listen to me. Eventually, though, I saw Ida spinning through the air like he was trying to use his quirk in 0 gravity. Before I could do anything, he hit the wall over the emergency exit sign. Everyone, calm down, he shouted, causing the mob to stop. It's just the media. They managed to make it past the front gate somehow. He pointed towards some windows. Take a look. There's nothing to worry about. Oh, hey, the spinny guy's right, one of the students said. And the police are coming. Now that we've calmed down, I suggest we form an orderly line. All of that pushing and shoving could have seriously hurt someone. Everyone followed Ida's orders and calmly evacuated. Except, of course, for Kakin, who decided to bring Uraraka her curry. We've still got to pick the other class officers, I told class. But first, I like to step down as class representative. I'm honored, but I don't feel like I'm up to the task. I couldn't help at all when the code 3 happened, and my deputy managed to calm everyone down and get a handle on the situation. I'm nominating Ida as class representative and Yairozu as his replacement as deputy. I can get behind that, Kirishima said. Ida really handled that situation. Let's hear it for emergency exit. Thank you, Midoriya, Ida said with a bow. I will not let you down. Midoriya, are you taking notes? Cementos asked me. You aren't touching your notebook. I jumped a bit. I wasn't really paying too much attention to his lecture because I already knew what he was talking about. Oh, I actually found out a way to automatically record lectures word for word with my quirk, so I'm kind of testing that out. Ah, how creative, he complimented me. If you don't mind me asking, what exactly are you doing? So I've known for a while that my quirk lets me do things like see subtitles like I'm in a video game, but recently I found out that if I clench my butt cheeks and bite my tongue just right, my quirk takes a screenshot of my vision that I can view later, HUD and all. So what you're saying is that you're taking a screenshot every time my text changes? Yes. How many screenshots have you made? I checked the new gallery tab. 40. I think it might just be easier to write my words down. I trembled with excitement. We were boarding a bus that would take us to an off-campus facility designed to train us in rescue scenarios. Sure, the combat training was pretty cool, but the first time I ever saw All Might, what made me really want to be a hero was a video of his debut, which was a rescue operation where he single-handedly saved 100 people. And here we were going to learn how to do that. Why wouldn't I be excited? Plus, I was wearing my hero costume again. Everyone please gather in 2 single-file lines. Edith said he was really taking his duty as class rep seriously, though I suppose that is why I made his class rep. We got on the bus, which, it seemed, wasn't exactly the kind that Ida was expecting when he made us form lines. I like being straightforward and saying what comes to mind. Azui, who was sitting next to me, said, Midoriya. Yes, Azui. Call me Tsu, she corrected. I'm going to be blunt. Your limit break power reminds me of All Might. Yeah, that's right, Kirishima said. It's super manly. I gulped. She was really perceptive, wasn't she? Luckily, I'd prepared an explanation for it that didn't involve one for all. It might look like it, but I think it works differently from All Might's quirk. I lied. I call it limit break, but really it's just me using a skill I got for getting all of my stats above 50. So your quirk gives you special powers for increasing your stats? Sue asked. Yeah, I only got one skill for each individual stat, but they each made the stat I got them from work better, I guess is a good way to say it. And the WIS skill was what gave me access to all 4 elements. Sue nodded. Sounds useful. How does limit break work exactly? I winced internally. It looked like I couldn't just distract her away. It isn't exactly like the traditional video game limit break, but I wanted to keep with the video game theme because my quirk gave it to me. The way it works is that I have a second MP bar that just doesn't have an upper limit. That's not to say that I have infinite power, but whenever my actual MP bar is full, the second bar stockpiles MP for later use. I can't use the second bar to fully power any skill, but I can use it for part of the cost. What makes it really powerful, though, is that I can use it to power up not just skills but STR and DX too. Of course, the reason I don't use it all the time is that there's some backlash from using it. I put my hand on my head. Of course, my quirk makes damage just a number, but I don't really want to find out what happens if my HP reaches 0. I think it's pretty awesome, Kirishima said. It's super flashy too, unlike my hardening. He demonstrated his quirk by hardening his arm. I think your quirk is awesome too, I said. It's the sort of quirk that could be really useful in pro hero work. Yeah, he sighed, but I'm not that sure I'll be too popular. You've got to factor in how cool it looks in the pro hero biz. My quirk is pro level in strength and flashiness. Aoyama offered. Yeah, Mina said, but it also gives you killer stomach aches. He sighed. If you're talking about flashiness and strength, the kings of that in one, have to be Todoroki and Bakugo, Tsu added. Kakin perked up a bit on hearing his name. If I had to pick one of those 2 for a popularity contest, though, I'd have to pick Bakugo, Uraraka said. They're both pretty standoffish at first. But if you get past that Bakugo's kind of nice guy. Kakin blushed a little and turned to face the window. Pyra appeared next to him and said, That's Kakin for a thank you. Shut up. Kakin yelled at Pyra. And how the hell are you physical? I didn't summon you. Speaking of elementals, Tokoyami said with a slight grin. Would you like to see mine, Midoriya? I smiled. Of course. From Tokoyami's cloak, a dark haze emerged, taking the form of a young boy in black, bird-themed armor, a basic elemental. It looked like he had a sword and shield behind his wing-shaped cloak. His eyes were red, with black scara. My name is Corvo, he said. My elemental is a dark knight, Tokoyami said proudly. Corvo demonstrated his power by radiating some darkness despite physics, saying that was impossible. Hey, I got an elemental too, Uraraka exclaimed. A purple and blue glow formed from the air next to her, condensing from gravity itself to form a young girl. Much like Blaze, her skin was midnight black, but she also had sky blue patches on her cheeks. Her eyes, or at least what I think were her eyes, were a solid yellow. Her blue hair, pulled vaguely into pigtails, was nebulous and glittered with stars. She wore a simple purple dress with a crescent moon on the center. "Hi," she muttered. I didn't see it much, but I think her tongue was also yellow. "Her name's Nebula," Uraraka offered. "She's a little shy. I'd show you guys what she can do, but we're in a bus, and I'd rather not flip us over or destroy the suspension." Ida nodded. A wise decision. Perhaps she'll get her time to shine at the training facility. I certainly heard a lot from my brother on how useful gravity manipulation could be after I told him about your quirk. By the way, you might receive an internship offer from Team Idaten sometime in the near future. I also made an elemental, exclaimed Hagakure. A light shined from her invisible hands, and from that light came a girl in a silver-colored sundress. Her hair and the fur on her fox-like ears and tail were the same silver color. The only thing on her that wasn't silver was her white, fluffy scarf. "Isn't she cute?" Hagakure asked. "Hi, everyone," the elemental exclaimed with a blinding smile. "My name's Lucy." "Man, I wish I had an elemental," Sue said. "Even without the whole manipulating the elements bit, you guys have friends that you can summon at any time." I observed her. "Actually, Sue, it looks like you have water affinity, which means you should be able to summon a water elemental." "Oh, cool. Thanks, Midoriya." "We're here," Aizawa said, then the bus stopped. Everyone out. Outside of the bus, a person in what looked like a marshmallowy spacesuit was waiting for us. "I'm glad you're all here," they said. "I can't wait to show you my facility." "Omago should test 13. Uraraka shouted, stars in her eyes. "They're one of my favorite heroes." "Thanks. Uraraka, right?" 13 knows my name. She started searching herself for something. "Oh man, I wish I had something for you to sign and a pen to sign it on." Isn't it a little rude to ask someone for an autograph when you've just met?" Nebula asked quietly. "Thank you for your concern. Random small child that I've been told is actually some sort of elemental spirit, but I actually really like meeting fans. If you find something to sign, I'd love to sign it for you." I pulled a piece of cardstock paper and a pen out of my inventory. "Don't worry, Uraraka. I made sure to put multiple 64 stacks of multiple different kinds of paper in my inventory just in case someone needed paper. Or to eject at villains like a poorly managed Silodex." Uraraka gladly took the paper and pen from me. "You're a literal angel, Deku. I'll make sure to make it up to you somehow." She gleefully got 13 to sign it, but then just stared at it. "Crud, what am I going to do with this?" "I can hold on to it for you," I offered. "Great," Aizawa-sensei said dully. "Glad that we got that sorted out. Now, unless anyone else wants an autograph, let's go inside." I designed this facility to simulate several disasters heroes might need to help out in, 13 said, as they showed us the various disaster areas of the facility. "I call it the Unforeseen Simulations Joint. So it's Universal Studios Japan?" Multiple members of the class muttered at once. "No, that was not at all a factor in the naming," 13 said in a flat tone that made me feel like they weren't telling the truth. "In fact, I only learned of the existence of that place after I named it." "Oh, look at that." Observe implied that they were lying. 13, where's All Might?" Aizawa-sensei asked. "Did he forget about this and schedule an interview or something?" "Oh, I need to speak to you about something over here," 13 said. They took him out of earshot of us and said something that involved them holding up 3 fingers. I heard a few small pops to the tune of shave and a haircut. The sign Kakin came up with to ask me to invite him a party. Kakin. Dumbass used up his time for the day, didn't he? Kakin. And stopped changing my name to Kakin Deku. He wasted no time in PMing me. Deku. Hey, I set my name to Deku, didn't I? Deku. And yeah, that's probably what happened. I saw something about him stopping some villains on his way to work. Kakin. Shouldn't he be getting better? You've been using your healing spell on him every day. 13 started giving a cool speech about their quirk, Black Hole, and how quirks could be very dangerous if misused. It was nice, but I also had to focus on PMing Kakin. Deku, it's not that simple. For one thing, healing hands isn't that strong, all things considered. Yes, it's a very good spell, but I'm pretty sure that I'd still have trouble healing anything much worse than a light fracture. Deku. Second, All Might's time went down a lot after giving me his quirk. I think he's still stockpiling MP, but it seems he's doing it less. Eventually, even if I make him be in even better condition than before AFO, I think he's still going to run out of power. The BGM shut off, as did the USJ's lights. I noticed some sort of black mist coming from the fountain in the center of the facility, and it seemed I wasn't the only one. A man with powder blue hair and disembodied hands clamped all over his body emerged from a mist, followed by a crowd of other people. Death on two legs. LV-61. Shigaraki Tamura. At level 23, he was 38 levels higher than me. And over the mist, there was another title. Purple Haze. LV-57. Watanabe Kirojiri. Hey, I didn't think we were starting already, Kirishima said. Who are those guys anyway? The BGM came back, but that wasn't feel-good field trip training music. That was ominous music. Everyone get back, Aizawa-sensei barked. I don't recognize all of their names, I said, but a lot of them are actual villains. I was especially worried by the giant, black-skinned, bird-looking man with an exposed brain standing next to Shigaraki. LV? Nomu. There was just something off about him, and I couldn't observe him, which was off-putting considering how the only other people that applied to were high-ranking pro heroes. I see 13 and Eraserhead. I think it was that Watanabe guy that the deep voice was coming from. Odd. All Might should be here. Ah, and I brought a whole raid party for him, Shigaraki complained. Let's hope he comes out when the kids start dying. Aizawa's capture scarf unfurled. 13. Protect the students and contact the main campus. It seems one of them has a quirk that is blocking the sensors, Todoroki said. With how prepared they are, I doubt we'll just be able to call for help. Good catch, Todoroki, Kaminari, and Midoriya. You two have powers or equipment that can be used to contact others. Use them. I'll hold them off. But how? I asked. Your quirk is best used in ambush or one-on-one fights. A hero can't just glide by doing what their quirk is best at. With that bit of wisdom, he was off. He took out 3 long-range type quirk users before they even realized what had happened. I instantly became a lot less worried for him and joined my classmates in running like hell. You're not going anywhere, Watanabe said as he rose from the floor. Or a portal on the floor, according to F detection. We are the League of Villains, he monologued. Pardon the imposition, but we have come to murder the symbol of peace. His misty body spread out. I hope you don't mind too terribly. Like hell we don't. Kaken screamed as he and Kirishima charged Watanabe. Smoke from explosion clouded them from our sight. A commendable effort, Watanabe said as the smoke cleared, revealing him to be relatively unharmed. But if you persist in your endeavors, I fear you'll both wind up dead. Get back, you two, 13 yelled. A chuckle emanated from Watanabe's body. Don't worry, 13. You won't have to worry about that soon enough. After all, my job in this operation is to scatter you all to the 4 winds. With that, he exploded into a thick purple haze that engulfed us all. After a few moments of disorientation and a sudden change to my mini-map, I found myself in the air over what looked like a lake. Ah, crud. Ah, crud, I said as I crashed into the water. I wasn't too concerned with the fall because of my high HP and almost prestiged physical endurance, and swimming was probably really easy with water magic and an elemental. No, what was really concerning was that there was a villain with a shark mutation quirk swimming menacingly toward me. Thankfully, Tsu came out of nowhere and kicked the guy before he could get too close. I think she was carrying Mineta like some sort of parcel too. Hey, Midoriya, she said despite being underwater, then grabbed me with her tongue. I was dragged with her to the surface, where she gently deposited me on a nearby boat. A second later, Mineta made a lewd comment to her and was thrown onto the boat next to me. Note to self, don't make Sue angry, I thought. She climbed on board next. Thanks for saving me, Sue, I said. She nodded. Don't mention it. This is shaping up to be a bad day. Karo, she understated. Yeah, I said, I think that they planned this. One of the villains said All Might should be here, meaning they had our schedule. Maybe one of them snuck in when those reporters invaded, I theorized. Mineta and Tsu both suppressed a shudder. Yeah, but one all might get here to rescue us? Mineta asked. Aizawa-sensei said you could contact Yui. I shook my head. Unfortunately, the party invite function has a range limit. I tried, but we're too far away for me to invite anyone at Yui to my party, which is what he was talking about, I explained. Actually, though, I can do this. I clear the party chat history, change the party name to an explanation on what the party invite was, then send invites to our classmates and teachers. Though I couldn't see them, Sue and Mineta reacted to the boxes randomly appearing in front of them. What is this? Mineta asked. Is this that party invite thing you were talking about, Midoriya, Karo? Sue asked. Yeah, just press yes and you get in. There's a party chat function. Hang on, I'll put instructions in it for the others. I typed in some quick instructions as the others joined in, as well as the reason why I couldn't just summon All Might. Kirishima Ijiru. Dude, holy cow, this is awesome. Sucks that you can't just ring Yui, but I guess all quirks have their limits. I noticed that 13 and Ida weren't responding and Todoroki declined. I sent him another invite, but he just declined it again. I recalled his title, The Path to Isolation, and winced. I wasn't going to be able to add him, was I? Deku, does anyone know why 13 and Ida aren't joining? I'm starting to get a little concerned. Uraraka Ochako. That warp monster got 13 with their own quirk, and Ida's probably out of range. Don't worry about the warp guy, though. I have him. I blinked. Even through the chat, I could tell she was angry. I hope she didn't go overboard. Right? We need to fight our way out of here, right? Sue asked. What? Why? Mineta objected. Midoriya, Sue said. Yeah? I asked. You have a healing spell, right? And beyond that, aren't you getting special lessons from Recovery Girl? 13's down, so we need to get you over there ASAP, Karo. Plus, there's just the fact that they're probably going to attack soon. Yeah, hang on, I'm going to do something first. I opened up my status screen, and for the first time, used some of the points I'd accumulated over the course of having my quirk. I only had to use 10, though. By raising WIS above 100, 2 random skills have been created. The skill Tactician has been created through WIS rising above 100 and having INT above 80. The skill Mantra has been created through WIS rising above 100 and having the skill Enlightenment. The skill Duality has been created through WIS rising above 100. It was an odd feeling. I felt something shift in my mind, along with my mana changing somehow. It was interesting to know that I could get extra skills for the 100 benchmark, plus the fact that they could be influenced by other factors. Before I could check out what they did, though, I'm tired of waiting. One of the villains shouted, and a blade of water crashed into the boat, causing it to start sinking. Mineta started screaming and threw some of his head balls into the water. I didn't think we'd actually be fighting villains so soon. I don't want to die. I slapped him. I don't know why, but I felt like it was the best course of action. It did get him to stop crying. Mineta, I said sternly, putting my hands on his shoulders. This isn't the time for panic. It's unfortunate that this happened, but we can't just wish ourselves out of this situation. I don't know why you decided to become a hero if you're so afraid to die, considering how high the mortality rate is, but I need you to stop whining and focus. I turned my attention to the villains. They were afraid of Mineta's balls, backing away from them. They didn't know what his quirk was, and more likely than not ours as well. I noticed that even with just a glance, I could tell their emotional state, quirks, and other information that I normally need to use Observe for. Why was that? Tactician. It granted me enhanced critical thinking, decision-making, and thinking ability in general, but only in battle or other such high-stress scenarios. Not only that, but it's synergized with Observe and Gamer's Mind to passively grant me any information I could find useful in my current situation. That was a very good skill, and I could tell why it needed to have INT so high. Armed with the knowledge that I didn't even need to bring up the skill box to know what my new skills did, I used Tactician on them. With Mantra, all I could tell was that it was useless in my current situation because it had the exact opposite activation requirements as Tactician. Most likely because it was useless in my current situation because it had the exact opposite activation requirements as Tactician, but Duality. Duality was exactly what I was hoping for. In addition to giving me a slight boost to elemental magic, it, as the name suggested, allowed me to combine any two primary elements to create secondary elements. I have an idea, I said, then looked at my hand. I combined fire and wind, and small sparks arced across my fingers. Sue, I need you to get Mineta out of here. And Mineta, I need you to throw as many of your hairballs as you can at the villains after I use my limit break. If all goes well, you shouldn't even have to aim that much. I stepped onto the railing, preemptively buffing myself and activating lightning aura. Tactician immediately told me that lightning aura boosted movement speed, attack, STR, and DX, and obviously let me generate electricity. What are you even doing, Midoriya? Mineta screamed. Limit break, I shouted, drawing on one for all in my newly made lightning affinity. As I jumped from the railing, sparks arced from my clenched fist. I made sure to have Blaze and Halidus help make sure none of the villains were too hurt by the voltage after confirming they could collaborate to control lightning, plus have Rain chipping in by purifying parts of the water to make some insulation so the lightning wouldn't go out of control. Thunderhammer. I punched the air, shooting a lightning bolt combined with a Detroit smash at the water. Thankfully, I saw that none of the villains were too badly hurt from the resulting electrified whirlpool, just incapacitated from the balls Mineta threw. From that alone, I jumped up 5 levels to 28 and got a few other notifications. Sue's long tongue wrapped around my waist, plucking me out of the air. You okay, Midoriya? Sue asked once we landed in the shallows. You said that limit break gives you backlash, Karo. I nodded. Yeah, it stung a little and I need to wait a bit so I can recover my HP, but there aren't any villains around, so I should be good. What do we do now? Mineta asked nervously. I'd say we should go to the entrance, where 13 is, Sue said, looking at what I assumed was the chat log. Actually, I said, then created a few glowing green orbs for my mana, then manifested my elementals to give them to them. I think we should check out Aizawa first. I recently got a new firing mode for my regeneration spell that lets me store the effect in an orb and only release it when it's broken. Hopefully that'll tide 13 off for a while, but Aizawa-sensei's probably starting to get tired by now. You want to go where even more villains are? Mineta asked. Between Sue's long tongue and hopefully water magic, your sticky balls that we've already proved are very good at stopping villains. And my magic, we should probably be able to pick off a few villains for Aizawa without getting dangerously close, I suggested. Now, let's go before something bad happens. Something else, you mean, Sue said. Karo. Kaminari screamed as he ran away from a villain. F it, Kaminari. Jiraiya yelled. Why didn't you ask for any support gear? I didn't think about it. Okay. At least tell me you figured out how to use magic to help your quirk. He dodged another attack. How? Jiraiya sighed and blasted a sound wave straight from her jack at an enemy. Figuring out that sound was an element was a godsend for her. Not only could she do quicker shots from her jacks, but the sound magic was boosted by louder sounds, making her boot speakers devastating. See, lightning is even more what I'd think of as a magical element than sound. So why shouldn't you be able to use lightning magic? She stared at him, dodging a bit more. For now, though, Jiraiya kicked the blonde generator into a villain, causing Kaminari to instinctively activate his quirk. When he was touching a villain, heck yeah, Kaminari shouted as the villain was launched back from both the current and his own spasming muscles, taking out another villain. Did you see that? Cool, Jiraiya said. Do it some more. I wish I could use magic with my quirk, Yaoyorozu said, then took out a villain with a net. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out any way to do that. Jiraiya shrugged, then blasted a group of villains over with her speakers. You ever seen Full Metal Alchemist? No, I don't believe I have, Yaoyorozu said. Why do you ask? Dude, you should totally watch it. Kaminari butted in. It's an oldie but a goodie. Plus you probably like all that stuff with chemistry and stuff. Hey, a villain shouted. Stop talking about anime in the middle of a fight. What I meant, Jiraiya continued, was that the way you said your quirk worked reminded me of the alchemy in it. You said your quirk breaks down the lipids in your body and then lets you turn it into other stuff, right? Yes. Yeah. Well, the alchemists in FMA do their stuff by understanding, breaking down, and remaking matter into whatever shape they want, following the law of conservation of matter. Sound familiar? Yayarosa nodded. Thank you. I doubt I'll be able to do it in the middle of battle, but it's definitely something to think about. Though yeah, you probably should watch it if you're going to try to be an alchemist, Gyro said. Dude, I've got the whole thing on Blu-ray. Kaminari shouted over electrifying another villain. Brotherhood and the movies too. Let's watch it sometime. Thank you both, Yayarosa said. Now it's ready. She hunched over and a giant blanket-like object burst from her. And I'm not making this up, folks. Yaoritard. Yaoritard. What good's a blanket gonna do you guys? One of the villains taunted. It's not a blanket. Yaoritard responded. It's an insulator. She covered herself and Gyro fully. Go, Kaminari. All right. Indiscriminate discharge. He dumped as much electricity as his quirk could handle into the air, shocking all of the villains. Dang, this is a pretty big, Gyro started to say as she lifted the insulator, then looked at Yaoritard and blushed. What happened to your clothes? Sorry, Yaoritard said. I had to make it under my costume, which broke it a little. Don't look, Kaminari. Gyro shouted at Kaminari through the opening in the insulator, hypocritically still looking. Kaminari said, completely oblivious to both of them on account of his quirk frying his brain. And we're going to cheese it if anyone even looks at us the wrong way, right? Mineta asked. Yeah, that's the plan, I said. I handed them speed-up orbs. Crush these, and you'll go faster. We watched Aizawa-sensei beat up a few of the villains before setting his sights on the leader, Shigaraki. He charged Shigaraki, trying to elbow him in the gut. Shigaraki caught his hand, though, and Aizawa-sensei's hair dropped. I felt a sense of foreboding, then saw Aizawa's sleeve start to disintegrate where Shigaraki was touching it. He jumped back, though I saw that some of his skin had also been destroyed. He kept fighting, though, even with what must have been unbearable pain. I called Halidus back over to me, now incorporeal, and gave him a Regan orb. Unfortunately, they didn't stack, but getting just one over to Aizawa-sensei would help him a lot. I had Halidus slowly levitate the ball above the villains with air pressure and over to Aizawa-sensei. But before Halidus could get it over to him, though that thing, the Nomu, slammed his head into the ground hard enough that vital fluid splattered out. Even with Gamer's Mind, I was sickened with how the Nomu crushed first his injured arm, then his uninjured arm. His screams were blood-curdling. Before Nomu could kill him, though, the warp mist guy, Watanabe, teleported in. Shigaraki Tamura, he said. What is it, Kirojiri? Shigaraki shouted back. I figured it would be about how Ida got out, and that this would distract Shigaraki and maybe even get the villain's retreat, so I made Halidus break the regeneration on Aizawa, and was about to enter an illusion barrier, but Tactician and Sense Danger told me that would be a bad idea. Aizawa could wait, but, well then, let's at least get some of the hunt targets before we retreat, Shigaraki said before he ran with surprising speed to us. I tried to jump up to fight him, but the water hindered me a bit. Before I could get Rain to help me, though, what I feared the most happened. Shigaraki placed his hand on Tsu's face. We all froze in terror, but nothing seemed to be happening. Shigaraki laughed and looked back to Aizawa, who was staring at him. You got a high con stat, huh? Wow, you're amazing. Before he could say anything else, though, I activated OFA and swung at him with an 8% punch with lightning added into it. However, Nomu just seemed to appear in front of my punch, tanking the hit. I noticed, though, that the lighting seemed to bother it. Huh, for a kid, your level's pretty dang high, Shigaraki said. What? I thought. Can he see my level? His quirk is disintegration. Otherwise, Aizawa wouldn't have been able to stop him. Actually, he said con and not VIT. So, I guess he's just a gamer, not a gamer. Meh, he said. I've got these two. Kill the boy Nomu. Nomu reached for my head, and Shigaraki reached for Tsu and Mineta. I doubted Aizawa would be able to use his quirk again, so I told all of my elementals to get him away from my friends. However, there was a slight delay when entering an illusion barrier that meant that Nomu was going to be touching me by the time I was going, so I didn't see how I could get away without using my elementals. One skill. Tactician gave me the one skill I could use to get myself away from Nomu without forsaking the others. One skill that I'd only just got and didn't even have the time to test out, yet it was perfect for my situation. As with Air Aura, I let Air Mana saturate my body. A skill has been created through special action. The skill Elemental Embodiment has been created through Elemental Aura, reaching max level. But this time took it one step further. Before the giant fist of Inomu could close down on my head, it dissolved, along with the rest of my body, into the air itself. What the actual hell? Is this kid an air of breath? Shigaraki asked after getting blown back by a combined effort of rain and Halidus, and then seeing me avoid Nomu by becoming air. Interestingly enough, I could hear him perfectly fine despite not having ears. I canceled air embodiment because it was actually a little on the expensive side. That being said, though, it was definitely a welcome trade-off for complete immunity to both physical damage and one element, plus the logical weaknesses and resistances of whatever element I became. Shigaraki Tamura Watanabe, or Kirojuri, as Shigaraki called him, said, "I believe that is Midoriya Izuku, the discoverer of magic. If I had to guess, his quirk facilitates the use or development of magic somehow, meaning he has the potential to become even more dangerous to our goal than All Might." I gulped. Being overestimated by a villain with control over a giant monster with a level that I couldn't even see wasn't fun. Higher level threat than All Might. Yeah, I don't want that. Nomu, kill the hacker. The giant monster appeared before me at a speed that made me almost completely sure that thing had a speed-raising power. In that instant, I had an idea. Instead of trying to run or dodge, I let the punch hit. My body was splattered across the ground, which was exactly what I was planning on. Instead of painting the floor of the USJ red with my vital fluid, all Noma's punch really accomplished was soaking the floor, with the exception of a perfect circle around Aizawa-sensei and the area by the water with Mineta and Tsu in it thanks to rain, in water that I'd made sure contained the impurities of normal water. I'd heard of inexperienced hydrogenesis quirk users trying to use their water to conduct electricity and failing because of the way their quirks work, making only pure water an insulator before, and made sure that didn't happen. Damn it, this kid has water magic too? Shigaraki yelled. This is nonsense. The BGM my quirk supplied me switched to something that I felt was really fitting for the situation, so I switched it to public trash. Does anyone else hear anime protagonist music, or is it just me? He asked. My hand shot out of the puddles, and I pulled myself up from the water. I didn't really have to, but with magic like mine, a little showmanship every once in a while was fun. Noma charged at me, but I combined air and water mana to form ice magic. I was locked into using water magic when water embodiment was in effect, but it seemed I could partially get around that to combine it with another element if at least part of me was still flesh and blood. Ice beam. I intoned as a beam of cold shot from my hand, covering Nomu in a layer of ice that I was sure it'd break out of quickly. That thing, Nomu, it was made to kill All Might, right? Inside I was screaming, but on the outside I kept a mask of calm to try and intimidate them as I pulled myself fully out of the water. I noticed when I punched it, even though I'd upped my strength a lot, it wasn't hurt by the force, but at the same time it was bothered by the electricity I added in. And just now, it didn't have a counter to my ice. The Noma broke free through sheer physical strength, tearing chunks of frozen flesh off. I noticed the wounds appeared to be healing at an increased rate. Aside from pure muscle, of course. I froze Nomu again. So my guess is it was tailored to fight All Might, a pure physical fighter. Shock absorption, strength on All Might's level, super healing for if All Might did manage to land a blow. That about right? But you didn't even bother to give it much special defense aside from the healing, did you? Damn it, damn it, damn it. Shigaraki shouted. How the hell did a little brat manage to figure out my anti-All Might weapon like that? Let's kill him. I grinned as the music reached a peak. For the second time that day, I shouted the magic words. Limit break. Lightning mana surrounded my body. And he's at a limit break too? Hell, this kid is OP. Lightning barrage. I shouted, then dissolved into pure electricity and entered the water to rush the Nomu. Electricity doesn't travel anywhere near the speed of light, but it does travel a lot faster than sound and a good conductor, so at close distance I might as well have teleported. When I exited the water, I traveled a lot slower, but still definitely faster than I would have normally. despite the fact that I was energy enough to travel as a current, I was able to hit Nomu with a lightning-fast barrage of OFA enhanced punches, lightning embodiment mitigating the physical damage even from my own attacks. Even though Nomu literally couldn't touch me, I arced away when tried to punch at me, though more to deliver some relatively light punches to Shigaraki and Kurojairi than to actually dodge the attack. I was absolutely sure to not let them touch me, on account of how they might have been able to hurt me, and went back to Nomu. I picked up where I left off with my wild charge, stopping every few milliseconds or so to take down a few more villains before returning to Nomu, until my MP reached a little under half, at which point I retreated back to Aizawa and deactivated Lightning Embodiment. Keeping my eyes on the villains, I knelt down next to him and started using Limit Break, healing hands on him, focusing on his vitals and eyes. "You hackers," Shigaraki whined. Nomu wasn't moving, the parts where I hit it were smoking. As I watched, it fell face first. "That kid just took out Nomu, holy cow," one of the villains shouted. "F this thing, let's get out of here." Another villain contributed. Before they could, though, the doors slammed open. "Never fear," a voice that I'd never been happier to hear, and that saying something shouted, "For I am here." All Might, who just then I saw for the first time in his muscle form, wearing anything but his trademark smile on his face, dramatically and literally ripped off his tie, then disappeared in a blur of speed. He incapacitated several of the villains without even slowing down and stopped in front of me. "Are you okay, young Midoriya?" he asked me, running a little low on MP, "but I'm more worried about Aizawa-sensei," I said, now focus more on healing him because I doubted the villains would even do anything with All Might there and Noma down. "By the way, that steaming pile of monster that was supposed to be able to kill you, while it might have been able to give you some trouble earlier, it wasn't nearly as effective against two new skills I just got." He grinned. "Good job, young Midoriya." Then he addressed the villains. "Now, how about you boys stand down and save us all some trouble?" "Kurojairi, it's game over," Shigaraki growled. "I don't care about the minions. Just use teleport on me." Kurojairi's mist enveloped Shigaraki before even All Might could do anything, and the both of them escaped. "That idiot left us," a villain said. "Now how are we supposed to get out of here?" "I'll give you two choices, in handcuffs or on a stretcher," All Might said. "I suggest the handcuffs. There's less bruising." Within moments, all of the villains stood down. With that, our disaster of a field trip came to a close. I closed all of the text boxes I'd gotten now that we were back at UE. The police were done taking our statements and just waiting for our parents to show up on account of the fact that they didn't want to let us go just yet unless it was with a relative. My level jumped from 28 straight to 36 after taking out the Nomu. It made sense. It was so above my level that I couldn't even see how much it was above my level. Plus, I got another title, Giant Slayer, for having beaten more than one opponent with a level at least 50 over mine, the other one probably being the 0-pointer. It gave me a small offense and defense boost for every level over mine and enemy, which I knew almost immediately would get less and less useful as time went on, even if it was very good at the moment. I was already level 36, and it was the first semester. Not to mention, depending on how it worked, it was entirely possible that it'd make me weaker against weaker opponents. Of course, I wasn't the only one who leveled up in the USJ. I looked over at Uraraka, who was sitting next to me. Megalovania, LV-23. Uraraka, Ochako. Apparently she'd stopped Kurojairi for so long by using gravity to slam him into the ground, and then making him fall in another direction whenever he tried to make a warp gate to get away. It was apparently really effective, at least until he managed to trick Uraraka into throwing him into a portal. She had a really intense look on her face still, and I could feel my weight fluctuating from the gravity mana she was unconsciously releasing. "I apologize deeply for not being able to help more," Ida said to Uraraka. She sighed and lightened up, and I mean literally lightened up. The gravity effect stabilized, causing her chair to stop creaking. "No, you did fine. I just couldn't help feeling like maybe if I noticed that portal sooner, I would have been able to cancel out 13's black hole." "I'm sorry," Nebula said. Uraraka smiled and ruffled her starry hair. "No, you're fine. But I couldn't help at all. You did everything. There'll always be next time." she said. Nebula sniffled. Let's change the subject for now. What the heck was that thing you did to the giant monster? Yeah, Kirishima shouted, quieting the general conversations that were going on. That was super manly. I would also like to know, Tokoimi said. I felt my face heat up a bit and rubbed the back of my neck. Almost everyone who was still there was staring intently at me as they waited for my explanation. So, you guys know how my quirk works like a video game, right? They nodded. So one factor of this I almost never use is that I get points for leveling up that I can use to raise my stats. And I use that to raise my WIS, which gave me 3 new skills. One of those was Duality, which raised my elemental affinity and gave me access to secondary elements, one of which was lightning. I told you, Kaminari, Jaira shouted, pointing at him. Yaoyorozu smiled awkwardly and put her arm on Jaira's shoulder. And then I got a much better version of Elemental Aura from raising its level enough called Elemental Embodiment when fighting the Nomu, which was what I used to beat it. So that's why it looked like you were teleporting, Hagakure said. Yeah, though it wasn't really teleportation, I said. I just spilled a lot of water on the floor and conducted myself through it in lightning embodiment. Dang, that's pretty awesome, Kaminari said. I wish I could do that. Well, if you practice lightning aura enough, you might be able to do it. To use elemental aura, you infuse your body with elemental mana. Elemental embodiment is just that, but more I explained. Sorry, I can't give you more for that, but I only used it 3 times in the middle of battle, and the downside of automatically learning things with my quirk is that it's a little hard to explain how to do them sometimes unless I concentrate really hard on what I'm doing. Nah, it's cool, man. I'm sure I can figure out eventually. And by the way, Kakin said, you probably shouldn't use a spell that makes you generate electricity all over your body, anywhere, near anything sensitive to electricity. Not at first, anyway. He paused for a moment. Actually, with your quirk, you should probably know how the hell that thing goes. Kaminari gave a thumbs up. Don't worry, I learned that lesson already. What were the other 2? Ciro asked. You said you got 3 WIS skills, right? Yeah. There's Tactician, which just lets me think better and automatically gives me information on my skills as I need them, but only when in a battle or crisis. The other one, Mantra Passive LV1 EXP, 52.19%. Mantra is a sacred utterance, words to live by. This skill represents the ability to change one's meditation into an internal mantra when not in danger, providing some of the benefits of meditation without the downside. Allows the use of meditation as a passive when not in times of high exertion and or stress, but with 1/5 the effect. Stacks with meditation. Mantra is interesting. I can't use in battle, but it basically turns another of my skills, meditation, into a passive at the cost of some of its effect. That pretty much means that my HP and MP regenerate a bit faster, and even more usefully, I can automatically train one stat aside from LUC at a time. Slowly, we broke back up into our smaller groups and started talking to each other. Hey Deku, Uraraka said, then pointed at Tsu, who was sitting alone. Is it just me, or is Tsu-chan shaking a bit? I winced. Oh, I said. I'd asked her if she was okay after everything was over on account of the part where she almost died, but she just said she was fine, and I didn't even think to observe her to check to see if that was the case. Though in hindsight, doing that might have been an invasion of privacy. She almost got her face disintegrated. I think I might need to talk to her. Uraraka got up, a serious look on her face. No, I'll go. Tsuyu Azui felt like she couldn't breath, and her heart was pounding. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see that man's hand in front of her face. Her hands kept on shaking, even when she tried to stop. Are you okay, Tsu? A familiar voice asked. Deku said something about your face almost disintegrating, which sounded like it was really scary, Uraraka said. Tsu took a deep breath and tried to steady herself. She didn't want to worry any of her classmates. I'm fine, Uraraka. Uraraka sat down next to her. You can call me Ochako if you want. It's okay if you're scared, Tsu. I was terrified, and I didn't even get attacked. Tsu bit her lip. Her vision started to blur, and a hot tear rolled down her cheek. Ochaka held her arms out, offering a hug. Do you want to cry on my shoulder? Tsu let out a small karo and leaned into her embrace, pressing her face to Ochako's shoulder. She sobbed and let the tears flow. There, Ochako said. Feel better? Sue nodded, face still on her shoulder. Ochako rubbed her back lightly. That's good. I feel shame as a class representative that I didn't notice how Azui was suffering, Ida said as he watched Uraraka comfort Sue. Maybe you could see if anyone else needs a hug? I offered. Ah, thank you, Midoriya. I will do that. Just remember, Kakin said, if someone's on the verge of panic attack, make absolutely sure to use your indoor voice. I know that, Ida said using his indoor voice. He looked over at us. Bakugu, Midoriya, are you two all right? Oh my, what Kakin said flatly. I'm pretty sure we're both fine. He shooed Ida off. Go, ask how everyone else is. We're good. Ida, I said. Koda looks a little nervous. Maybe start with him? I gave Ida a thumbs up as he walked over to Koda. I heard the tapping of a certain needle cane. Midoriya Kuin, recovery girl, said as she entered the room. I'd like you to come to my office. I've patched up Eraserhead and 13 enough that I'm willing to let you get some hands-on experience. Right, I said. I'm coming. Izuku, my mom shouted, then grabbed me in her death grip of motherly worry. Are you okay? I was so worried. Katsuki, Auntie Mitsuki shouted. You will better be all right. I'm fine, Ma. He shouted back to her. So you two must be Midoriya-san and Bakugu-san, recovery girl observed. If you don't mind, Midoriya-san, I'd like to take your son to my office for a bit. Mom stepped back a bit and inspected me. Is Izuku hurt? Mom, I'm fine. I said. Sorry, I think I should have worded that better, recovery girl said. Midoriya-kun is fine, but I'd like to have him help with the actual wounded. He's taking my support hero courses, remember? Oh, right. Mom said. How is my dear Izuku doing, by the way? He's doing pretty well, which is why I want to borrow him for a bit. Plus, his healing spell can be safely used on people I've used my quirk on because he's the one providing all the energy. I still need to learn it. Right, I said. If you don't mind, Mom, I'm going to go with recovery girl. I'll see you when I'm done. She smiled at me. Go on, sweetie. I looked over my new elemental affinities. Air 20, Earth 20, Fire 30, Water 30, Bio 20 Earth plus Water, Ice 20 Air plus Water, Lightning 20 Air plus Fire, Molten 20 Fire plus Earth, Sonic 20 Air plus Earth, Vapor 20 Fire plus Water. I tested each combination of elements in Illusion Barrier just in case any of them were immediately explosive. The only one that did anything close to exploding, though, was Sonic, which caused a low humming sound when I used it. Bio was worrying at first, but I found that all it was a combination of poison and plant, though I felt like maybe there might have also been some flesh manipulation in it that I wasn't quite willing to mess with just yet. It was interesting, though, using the secondary elements. Now that I was out of danger and able to properly concentrate on my magic, I noticed that it wasn't exactly fusing the elements together as I thought it was. If anything, it was more like using power that was less fragmented than the primary elements. It was odd, but that was the best analogy I had. Right, I said. Is everything ready? You do realize that this probably isn't the best idea, right? Blaze asked, referring to the 6 ritual circles equidistant to my bed, and in particular the molten lava and cup of boiling water he was keeping warm. Halidus nodded. Agreed. I'm going to be out of it either way. Might as well speedrun it, I responded. Rain grinned widely. I like it. We get all of the new weapon buddies at once. Yeah, weapon buddies. Dune agreed, happily pulling the cord on my I Am Here All Might action figure with Kung Fu grip. Right, let's start this, I said. I placed my hands in front of the circles, had Dune put the laughing All Might in the empty circle to provide the sonic element, and activated the 6 rituals at once. I, Midoriya Izuku, call upon the ancient contract of ages past to summon thee. I stirred from my sleep to the sound of a familiar explosion. Suck it, a slightly less familiar voice said. I opened my eyes to see several children that looked like they were roughly 12. Along with one girl who looked like she was 10, in varying states of corporeality. The boy whose voice I heard looked like he could have easily been Kaminari's younger brother, except for the odd-looking ears, the red spots on his cheeks, and a strange lightning bolt tail. He had a yellow jacket with 2 brown stripes on it. My new lightning elemental, Raimon. He was holding one of the controllers of my Switch, and, judging from his furious button presses, he was the one who was playing the Pikachu that was winning. A lot. Cheater, Rain whined. She'd gained even more dark blue on her clothes and hair, and she now had blue fingerless gloves with white knuckles. It looked like she was playing as Greninja. She wasn't very good with Greninja, though. I couldn't help but notice how Raimon and Rain resembled the characters they were playing as. I knew I should have picked the sword guy. Which sword guy? My vapor elemental, Claude, asked. He wore light, red body armor, had 3 spikes in his red hair, and for some reason reminded me of a lobster. Aren't like half of them sword guys? 13 of 74, Halidus corrected. Halidus had changed a lot, actually. His hair was now sky blue instead of his robes, and he had 2 long ponytails. His robes were fully made of the cloudy material with the exception of 5 blue tassels in the back that might have actually been some weird tail. He now had patches on his cheeks like Raimon. Those were white. Claude rolled his eyes. Same difference. Not even close, bro. The biggest of the elementals, Iggy said. He was my new molten elemental. He had a red long sleeve shirt with 3 blue circles on the sleeves and 2 large brown lumps on the back. His hair was also red with a few spikes, so he and Claude almost looked like they could have been brothers if not for his camel ears. He had a red tail as well. And I think it's my turn now. He put his intangible hands on Rain's controller, and I felt a weird shift in the mana that was automatically leaving my mana pool as he and Rain switched between being partially summoned and fully summoned. Who else want to go? Mifuyu, my ice elemental, switched with Raimon. That would be me. Oddly enough, for an ice elemental, she had dark red hair, eyes, and 2 tails. She was dressed in dark blue ninja clothes, like Rain, but in a different shade. She had a small yellow gem on her forehead. Mifuyu picked Shiek, and Iggy picked DDD. So how are you guys able to summon yourselves? I asked. That would be for my help, Pyra said. It seems we elementals can summon ourselves, partially or fully, so long as our summoner can bear the strain of our summoning without a noticeable decrease in mana. Master Kakin gained the strength to handle me recently, and it seems your current limit is 3. With Sonya out regardless to allow us to be as loud as we want without waking your mother up, that meant that we've mostly been playing doubles. Matches. You're welcome, by the way, my Sonic Elemental said. She had a purple shirt, a black scarf, and black jeans. On her nose, she had rounded triangular purple sunglasses that you could still see her golden eyes through, and over her ears were some expensive-looking purple headphones. Yeah, after the primary elementals filled us in on everything, Pyra showed up and told us how to summon ourselves, so we could play some games to wait for you to wake up on your own. We did have some fun with a party game earlier, Juniper, my bio-elemental, said. She had a blue-green dress with darker green patches on it. Around her neck, she had a scarf that appeared to be made of green fronds, with a sort of brooch on the form of a pink bud. Her eyes were red, her hair was green, and she had pointed canine teeth. I hope you don't mind too terribly. We didn't mess with anything, and made sure not to mess with your save data. Actually, if you guys want to make an account on that, you totally can, I said. I'm pretty sure they'll give you guys save files separate from mine. Let's do that later then, Blaze said. His shirt darkened, and the sleeves now had small patches of light blue on them. His scarf had changed to have long red ends with a few black dots on them. For now, we're just playing Smash. Can I join next round? I asked. Sure, Sonya said. We still have an hour or so, till morning, according to a few of your neighbors' clocks anyway. Hey, can I play next too? Dune asked. Her clothes were now half camo and half solid black. We played until the sun rose. It was fun. So now you have 10 elementals? Kakin asked as we walked. We had a day off from school because of the USJ incident, so Kakin and I decided to go to an arcade to have some fun and play games. I nodded. Yeah, with the 6 elements I got from Duality. I did all 6 rituals at once. Actually, that was probably a stupid idea. That's what Blaze said, though with more cussing. No way, Kakin said. Seriously, what if that put you in a coma? I shrugged as we started to cross the street. I felt less tired after summoning the higher my skill level was, and even beyond that Duality raised all my. I was cut off by a speeding van ramming into me. It made me take a step back, and I took a hit to HP, but otherwise it was the van that was broken by the collision. I pried myself from the dent I made in the car and ran to the driver's side door. Oh my gosh, are you guys okay? I asked. The door opened, and the man inside punched me in the face, which surprised me more than anything, and grabbed me by the neck. "Oh," I said as I felt him hold a knife to my neck. "All right, nobody move, or this freak gets it," the criminal yelled. His accomplices got out and brandished knives as well, though thankfully they didn't grab any other hostages. I heard a motorcycle coming. Kakin laughed. "You idiots do realize that you just took the guy who unintentionally totaled your car by getting hit by it hostage?" The motorcycle sound screeched to a stop, and Present Mike ran up. "Hey, stop. We got a hostage, jackass." One of the villains jeered. "Hi, Mike Sensei," I said, waving at him. Mike Sensei grinned. "Hey, listener, you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Hey, can I ask you something about quirk usage laws?" "Sure. I know people are allowed to use their quirks to get out of situations where there's a danger to themselves, but I don't actually feel threatened at the moment, so I don't know how legal it would be." "I'll show you threatened." The man holding the knife to my neck shouted, then tried to stab me. I say tried because apparently I couldn't be stabbed by normal people anymore, though to be fair, the man was trying really hard. I noticed a text box that was probably the reason for that. It looked like I got it when I got hit by the car, and just didn't hear it over the sound of metal hitting me. "The hell? What did I tell you?" Kakin said. "I mean, they're trying to stab you," Present Mike said. And let's just say, I continued, that in my attempt to get away from the person threatening me with a knife, I accidentally incapacitate all three of them. "Can I be arrested for that?" Mike Sensei chuckled and said, "Technically, you're good because you're being attacked by a weapon." I nodded, then exploded into electricity. I arced through the three villains with exactly enough voltage to knock them over without causing lasting damage, and reformed next to Kakin. "That good?" "Great. I'll need to snag you for a couple minutes for some paperwork, though." "Okay," I said, coming back to Kakin. "So where were we?" He stared at me for a bit as we started walking again. "You're unbelievable," he told me. "You were just hit by a car, then stabbed." "What the?" Physical endurance prestiged, and I wasn't actually stressed enough for mantra to deactivate. "Are you okay, Karo?" a familiar voice asked me. I turned to see Uraraka and Sue walking up to us. "That looked like it hurt," Sue said. "Thanks, but I'm fine," I told her with a smile. As I was explaining to Kakin, a passive skill of mine that reduces physical damage just reached max level, which means that I now take 1/4 damage from any and all physical attacks. Uraraka whistled. "That's pretty broken. Plus, because it maxed out, I got a new passive damage reduction." Sue put her finger on her lip. "I think we already have a general idea, but what does that do, Midoriya?" She asked me. "I'll have to test it, but judging from a description, it removes 0.5% of my HP from all damage, which doesn't sound like a lot. But with my VIT, that's a lot, especially combined with physical endurance. And assuming it levels linearly, that means that at max level, it'll take an attack that does more than half my HP without the skill for me to actually feel it, which is pretty good. Deku's quirk is broken. Who would have guessed?" Kakin said. I chuckled. "Let's talk about something else, though. I take it you like space. Uraraka?" "How do you know?" she asked. Kakin snorted. "Gee, I wonder." Uraraka was wearing a galaxy print skirt, a Jaxa shirt, and a moon-shaped pendant. "Where did you get that necklace anyway?" "No offense, but isn't your family poor?" "This?" Uraraka asked, pointing to the pendant. "It was a birthday gift from my cousin Shota. He doesn't visit us often, but he always sends us stuff like this." She chuckled. "Mom's always worried he's spending too much on us, though. Though seriously, maybe you should have seen about staying with your cousin before you decided to get your own apartment." Sue said. "Didn't you say he lives somewhere near here?" "You what?" Kakin asked. Uraraka blushed. "So my parents live in ya." Kakin slapped his face. "And that's why I brought Ochako-chan home with me." "Karo," Sue said with a tone of something in her voice. Annoyance? Uraraka blushed a little. "It wasn't quite like that." Sue nodded. "So luckily both of our parents were visiting yesterday." Kakin glared at Sue. "What?" he demanded, causing Sue to make a startled croak. "My parents' jobs mean they aren't home all the time," she explained a little faster than normal. "They leave me in charge of my siblings, but at the same time literally the entire neighborhood looks out for us, so don't worry about it, Karo. They didn't leave us to fend for ourselves in an unfamiliar environment with no adult supervision, Ochako-chan. So I may or may not have not been in the best state at the time. So because I was clinging to Ochako-chan, we decided to just have lunch at my house. At some point, Ochako-chan's living situation came up, and now she lives with us. Our parents banished us from the house while they're moving Ochako-chan stuff into our spare room. So where are we going, Carol? Kakin and I are going to go to an arcade, I said. You don't have to come. Nah, that sounds pretty fun, and neither of us had actual plans other than the fact that I wanted to see if I could spot Ochako-chan's cousin in the wild, Karo. Uraraka made a little noise and pressed her index fingers together. We have several thousand yen in coins, Deku's core counted. Don't worry about it, Uraraka. Thanks. F it. Kakin groaned after I beat him easily yet again in the old Street Fighter game. Tsu and Uraraka went elsewhere after Kakin challenged me. How are you so good at this all of a sudden, Deku? Sorry, Tactician keeps activating, I apologized. Well, I'm gonna beat you anyways. Let's go again. I opened the skill boxes for Tactician and Mantra and read them closely. Hang on, I might be able to cheat the system. Kakin snorted, then put another coin in the machine. Whatever. I took a deep breath, then chose my character. As the match started up, I reminded myself that it was just a game and that I didn't need the boost. Even when Kakin got me locked in a combo, I never got the same feeling of clarity and rush of information that I became accustomed to with the repeated activations of Tactician. I just barely managed to beat Kakin, and by the time I was done, Mantra and Tactician both leveled up despite the fact that Mantra wasn't that near level up, and I specifically didn't use Tactician. I'll get you next time, Deku. You put in more coins for a rematch. So apparently Ochako-chan's actually monstrously good at fighting games, Tsu said once we were done. It was even closer, but I still managed to beat Kakin. I might have almost accidentally used my quirk on the machine once or twice. Uraraka added, blushing slightly. That would have been bad. Kakin stared at Uraraka for a moment, then popped some coins in the machine. Right, I want to see this. You and me, round face. I don't think Uraraka had actually played Street Fighter before. She messed around in the character selection screen for a bit before picking a character at random. When the match started, she hit random buttons and just let Kakin get some hits on her. Oi, round face, you're supposed to fight back, Kakin said after stopping. Have you not played Street Fighter before? Uraraka pressed the jump button a few times. In my defense, my family doesn't have a lot of money, so I never really went to arcades. My cousin did get me a couple Pokemon games for birthday and Christmas presents, though. She started doing some attacks. Kakin twitched. Okay, no offense, but I don't really feel like curb stomping a total newbie right now. Especially one I'd actually be willing to call friend. Might feel a little bad. Oh, don't worry. I think I've figured it out now. Without any more warning, Uraraka launched a near-perfect series of attacks on Kakin. To be fair, I think it was more Kakin's sheer astonishment than anything else that made him unable to fight back, but Uraraka still wiped the floor with him. Yeah, that was my first match with her too, Tsu told me when the round ended. The next couple rounds are even better. As Tsu said, the next round was a close win for Kakin, followed by a close win for Uraraka in the tiebreaker. In the rematch, Kakin didn't even win once, even if he came close. Kakin's really good at Street Fighter, so that was impressive. F it. Another round? Kakin asked. Uraraka nodded. I'm having fun. Kakin grumbled, but put another coin in. That time it wasn't even close. How are you so good? Kakin asked. Uraraka shrugged. I have no idea, but I'm not complaining. Right? Much as I hate to admit it, you're too good for me. Kakin looked over at me and grinned. So's Deku, so let's see how you two fight. I'm fine with that if you are, Deku. I nodded. Let's go then. Before we started, Kakin cackled maliciously and whispered in Uraraka's ear. He told her some combos, by the way, Sonya told me. Oh boy. At first I tried to keep from using Tactician to be fair to Uraraka, but after losing a somewhat short first round, I changed my mind. Even with Tactician automatically giving me both characters' entire movesets and each button she pressed on the controller, it was surprisingly difficult. I think that the only thing that let me win in the end was the fact that my DX leveled up from the frantic button pressing and the mantra I'd been using earlier. That was intense, Uraraka sighed. I know. Even with Tactician, you almost won, I said. Tsu smirked and pointed at something. Hey, Ochako-chan. There's a flyer for a tournament over there. Says it's a week from now, and there's a cash prize. Karo. Uraraka's head snapped over to where Tsu was pointing. Cash prize? Damn it, I was going to compete. Kakin sighed. Aizawa, Shota, sat up in his bed. Recovery Girl would probably have scolded him for doing that if she hadn't stepped out, but between her quirk and the healing spells Midoriya had taught her, he was mostly just sore. He reached out with his good arm to grab his phone from where Hizashi put it and opened up his photo album to a picture that he looked at often, even if he had a framed copy back home. It was 12 years ago, a few months before his mother's accident. She dragged 18-year-old him down to Mia for his cousin's 3rd birthday, and they decided to take a family picture. He sighed at the younger Shota, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world than next to his mother. His gaze drifted over to his aunt, uncle, and cousin. His uncle was a large, burly man with light brown hair, while his aunt looked almost exactly like his mother, though her eyes were a different color and lacked the ability to erase the gravity of whatever she was looking at. Even if his mother was older, they were always mistaken for twins. And his cousin. Sweet, young Ochako already looked so much like her mother, even as a toddler. The only difference was the age and the fact that she had her father's hair. Aizawa looked at a few later photos, pictures of Ochako that his aunt and uncle sent him. He laughed at a picture of Ochako with her 6th birthday cake all over her face. What are you looking at? 13 asked him. He always thought they looked a little odd outside of their containment suit, all thin and with pitch-black skin. Pictures of my cousin, he responded. Ah, your cousin. You never talk about her much. I don't talk to most of my coworkers in general. No offense. None taken. So what's she like? Aizawa thought for a moment. He really was too secretive. Perhaps it was the concussion or the near-death experience, but he felt like he should change that. You've met her. Oh, when? Yesterday. 13 shot up, then winced and gingerly touched the bandages on their back. Ow. Who is it? The girl who asked for your autograph. Ah, if you don't mind me saying, I didn't exactly get that impression from you too, if you take my meaning. Aizawa shrugged, then winced from the pain in his bad arm. He slowly lowered himself back down on his bed. I see you almost every day, and this is the longest we've talked after we both nearly died. My family lives in Mia. You do the math. I see. I always see you with Kiyama and Yamada, though. I've been friends with them since I was a student here, and they basically adopted me with joint custody. They keep dragging me out to do things. So, she hasn't met you? No, she has. I don't visit often, though, and the last time I visited, was it really 4 years ago? 13 stared at him. He couldn't really tell what they were thinking. Their face was too alien. I send the money, though. My family isn't in the best of financial situations, and they don't let me spend too much money on them, but I send as much as they'll let me. So if they live in Mia, where exactly is your cousin staying? Mia isn't exactly a short train ride from Mizutofu. Aye, son of a. They told you she was fine and you bought it, didn't you? Oh no. They chuckled. I take that to be the case. Aizawa reached for his phone again. Do it later. Hopefully she'll be fine for a day. And if not, then at least she has friends. Right? Aizawa nodded. She was getting along well with Tensei's brother. You, on the other hand, won't be fine if Shizenji Ba-san finds out you've been exacerbating your injuries by yelling at your relatives over the phone. Aizawa blanched and lowered the phone. Do you drink? He said after a while. I think if I didn't, I'd die rather soon. Aizawa rolled his eyes, then winced because his eyes still hurt. I meant, do you drink alcohol? Sake? Ah. Hang on for 1 second. They sat up slightly, enough to take a sip of the water by their bedside. Then they spat it out. Are you sure you didn't get it too hard? Ha, Aizawa deadpanned. I absolutely did, though. It made me introspective. Want to get a beer sometime? Absolutely, but clearly only after the both of us are out of the infirmary. Obviously. You're getting out tomorrow, yes? I mean, Shizenji Ba-san won't like it, but with her healing you'll be well enough by then, and you aren't going to miss your class, are you? No, I won't. What will you do then? Aizawa picked his phone back up and reopened his photo roll. Then he changed the picture because the picture of Ochako with chocolate icing on her forehead was horrible for any serious insight. He stared at the family photo from over a decade ago. Ochako looked so young, so happy. And yesterday, she could have died. Aizawa could have, almost did die, before she even got to know him. Learn more magic for one thing, he decided. I'm going to talk to Midoriya. I sneezed. Odd. It wasn't that cold and I didn't have allergies. If I was more superstitious, I'd have suspected someone was talking about me. How the hell did you still manage to beat me at DDR that last time? Kakin asked Uraraka. You were sneezing up a storm. Uraraka sniffled. I have no idea. Right? I should probably take Ochako-chan home, Sue said. It's probably going to be dinner time by the time we get home anyway. Bye, you two. Oh, actually, I said, before you two go, could I ask a favor? What's up, Deku? Uraraka asked as she rubbed her nose. I pulled a scroll out of my pocket. This scroll contains knowledge on the illusion barrier and space invader spells. When Kakin and I defeated each of our bosses for the first time, we got scrolls that I could use to learn a skill related to the boss. We have no idea if it's a side effect of my quirk or not, though. So you want to see if that happens if we go in without you, Karo? Sue asked. Of course, we didn't give it to any of our classmates because my illusion monsters were made of fire, meaning it's entirely possible for the monsters to counter the user's element. That's not really a concern with Round Face, though. I didn't see you in person, but I heard you were awesome in the USJ. Protect Sue, won't you? Uraraka beamed at the compliment and saluted Kakin. Roger. And Sue should probably be able to do something about whatever gravity monsters Uraraka's insane magic spawns. I'll take that as a compliment. Karo. Yeah, most of the time, Kakin compliments people like that. I said, you two will do fine, though maybe Sue should get a water elemental? Yeah, I got one, Karo. I was going to show everyone tomorrow. Though if I may ask, how did you have that scroll on you? I chuckled. That's actually from an elemental that I recently summoned, I said. One of 6, Kakin interjected, all at the same time. That probably wasn't the wisest idea, Sue said. I know. Right, so, as I said, then sent a mental command to Sonia. She nodded, then materialized a pair of floating turntable-like devices. Huh. At least now I know who was reading Homestuck on my phone, I thought. She started fiddling with the records and gave me a very Strider-like nod. She somehow managed to mess with my BGM in addition to setting up a very subtle noise distortion field like I asked. One of my elementals, Juniper, can control any organic material, with enough control that she can turn part of a tree into a pre-written scroll. Add that to the fact that my most recent upgrade to Summon Elemental actually granted my elementals some of the benefits of my quirk, which includes shared inventory when in range of me, and I was able to get that scroll for you guys from a nearby tree. You really play it fast and loose with quirk usage laws, don't you, Midoriya? Sue said. Kakin snickered. Yeah, that's fair. I had Sonia cut the field, causing me to hear a scratch that was hopefully just my quirk before the normal BGM resumed. Right, good luck you too. Try not to die, Kakin added. We won't, Sue said. Uraraka waved at us as she started to walk away. Bye. So did you do it? I asked Sue and Uraraka when I saw them by the front gate. No, not yet, Sue said. We're still practicing with the spells. Karo. Oh, and I think I found a new element. Uraraka added. I remembered how you said you had more fire and water affinity because of your parents' quirks, and I asked my dad about the specifics of his quirk. Turns out his finger pads actually latch onto things using some kind of magnetic thing, which means I can use some kind of weird magnet element. So what, like electricity? Kakin asked. Not exactly, Uraraka said, then pulled out a small metal ball. Watch. The ball started floating. No offense, but that isn't exactly a new trick for you, I said. She grinned. Yeah, but what about this? The ball glowed lightly around the middle, then split cleanly in half. I did say it was a weird magnet element, remember? Did you just break the bonds between its atoms down? I asked. Uraraka, please be careful with that. I know what happens when you split an atom. Deku. Oh, and also I got another elemental, so that's a thing. Cool, Kakin said. How about we get to the classroom, so you can summon them? So you have how many elementals now? Gyro asked me. I summoned them, pulling out materials when needed. 10. Sup, Iggy said. Right. Hey, can I have the elemental spell? I was going to ask you at the USJ, but I nodded. Oh yeah, totally. Hang on. I pulled a leaf out of my inventory, giving it to Juniper. Watch this. The leaf expanded and changed into a piece of wood, which paper then sprouted from. There's just something really cool about handing people scrolls with spells written on them. When Juniper was done, I handed Gyra the scroll. Little overkill, but thanks. I take it she's your plant elemental? Bio, but yes, Juniper said. Can we show you our elementals now? Sue asked. I nodded. Sue summoned a ball of water, and Urarika created some form of almost visible ripple in the air that I could feel with F detection. It definitely wasn't gravity, though. The water and ripple both expanded and turned blue, becoming humanoid. Sue's water formed into a small boy with dark blue hair and clothes, though with a lighter blue ruffle on his collar. Hi, everyone, he said with a bright smile. I'm Bubbles. Bubbles? Kirishima asked. Yeah, Bubbles created a white bubble wand with a pink loop for the bubbles. He waved it, forming some oddly thick bubbles that looked like they were made purely out of water. Bubbles. The water bubbles floated like normal bubbles, though. Meanwhile, Urarika's ripple formed into an androgynous child that also had blue hair and clothes, though theirs looked metallic, I guess. Their eyes had black sclera and red irises. Greetings, they said. My name is Ion. Didn't you already have an elemental, Urarika? Yaoyorozu asked. Yeah, Nebi's a gravity elemental, but Ion hears. She paused, then looked at Ion. Actually, what element are you exactly? I know you're some kind of magnetic element, but my element has had many names in the past because of its seemingly erratic nature, Ion said, closing their eyes. Alchemy, matter, reality, chaos, cataclysm, destruction, attraction. These names are a result of people at the time not knowing what exactly it affects and not thinking to ask. However, it does have a true, proper name, particle. Think of it like a culmination of the three fundamental forces of nature that are not gravity, as it allows for the manipulation of the electromagnetic and nuclear forces. They open their eyes. Is that a sufficient explanation? Urarika looked a little worried. Those were words that you said. So like, Full Metal Alchemist plus magnet powers? Ion blinked. I do not know what this Full Metal Alchemist is, but I assume so. In fact, a rather simple application of it is the spell compass, which allows one to feel magnetic fields, including Earth's. Actually, Yaoyorozu said, I think I might also be able to use this. Particle element. Ion nodded. My senses indicate you to be right. Perhaps you might be willing to demonstrate? Of course. Yaoyorozu made a small cube of what my observe told me was wood with her quirk, then used magic on it, reshaping it into a sphere. You are correct. That was an application of particle magic, quirk, and spell both. Yaoyorozu nodded and pocketed the ball. Thank you. Gyru, could I please borrow that scroll Midoriya gave you when you're done with it? Sure, Gyru said. I can make another if you need, I said. No, that's fine. Classmates, Ida shouted as he burst through the door. Class will start soon. Take your seats. I looked around. Aside from the elementals, who didn't have seats, the only person who wasn't sitting was Ida. I guess we should probably unsummon the elementals too, I said. He sighed. Yes, Midoriya, I see my mistake. He walked to his desk as our elementals said goodbye. Hey, so who's going to be teaching today? Ashido asked as she leaned back in her chair. Aizawa-sensei's probably still out, so... The door opened. I face-bombed when I saw Aizawa walking through the door. All right, class. I'm glad to see you're in your seats already. He had bandages wrapped around his eye, and one of his arms was in a sling. I noticed that with the level-ups I'd gained from USJ, I could see his title and level now. Eraserhead, LV-79. Aizawa showed up. Aizawa-sensei, are you sure you're good to be teaching? I asked. He stared at me, raised his hand, and did he just cast regeneration? I'm fine, Midoriya. And Recovery Girl insisted on teaching me healing spells just in case. Now, the first item on the agenda. The school's counselor, Hound Dog, would like me to remind you all that there is no shame in visiting his office after a traumatic event, and that it doesn't make you any less of a hero. In fact, I'm going to see a therapist soon, though that's more because of my tendency to isolate myself, leading to the degradation of my relationship with my family than anything else. Next, I'm sure you've noticed by now that one of your classmates isn't here. A wave of confusion rolled over the class. We were? I couldn't think of anyone who was gone, and it seemed that neither could the rest of the class. WH for the love of. Aizawa sighed. Mineta. It's Mineta. After the USJ incident, he decided to transfer to the general education course. I winced. That might have partially been my fault. On to better news, then. The last thing I have to say for today is that we will be having the UE Sports Festival in a few weeks. Yeah, the Sports Festival. Kaminari shouted. Is it really a good idea to still have the festival after what happened? Jairu asked. Come on, Jairu, don't ruin this. Aizawa nodded. It's a fair concern, but Nedzu seems to think that this will show the public that we've dealt with the problem. And we're going to up our security, so we are dealing with the problem. I feel I should remind you all, this is probably your best opportunity to get scouted, so put your best foot forward. And finally, Bakugu. Kakin perked up at the sound of his name. Yeah, teach? Because you had the best score in the entrance exam, you're giving the speech at the beginning. If you need any tips, ask the principal or All Might. Class dismissed. A buzz of excitement filled the room. The sports festival. UE Sports Festival was seen around the nation and even in other countries. Everyone's fired up. Huh? I said. Of course we are. Kakin shouted. It's the sports festival. Of course. Ida agreed. He was excitedly fidgeting in a way that made it look like he was dancing. But he was doing some kind of happy dance. Our goal is to become heroes. This is our chance to prove ourselves to the hero agencies of Japan. I'm fired up, Uraraka shouted. She had the most intense face I'd ever seen on her. A visible glow of pink surrounded her, and I could feel the gravity fluctuations from a few meters away. I'm going to win this thing. She punched the air above her, and a wave of altered gravity rattled ceiling. Not if I beat you. Kakin shouted. You're pretty excited? Huh, Ochako-chan? Sue commented. Yeah, that excitement's pretty manly. Kirishima cheered. Uraraka, I understand your excitement, but please curb your magic before you destroy something. Ida shouted. It was then that she noticed the gravity she was putting out. Oh, sorry. So, I said later when we were in the hallway. Why are you so determined to win? Uraraka? She stopped. Well. She hesitated. Are you okay, Ochako-chan? Sue asked. She nervously touched the tips of her fingers together. Well, it sounds kind of bad. I'm sure it's not that stupid, Kakin said. F. The grape said he was only in it for the ladies. Can't be much worse than that. She blushed. Well, see, the thing is that I'm kinda in it for the money. Yeah, I can see that, Sue said. Her blush deepened. Don't get me wrong. I also want to help people, but your family, I guessed. You said that money's tight, so you want to help them out, don't you? Yeah, she said. Cousin Shota sends us some money, but we only accept so much because he'd probably not leave anything for himself if we didn't. I want to be able to support my parents and make sure Shota doesn't have to worry about us at all, so I need to sign with a good agency. Ida started clapping. How inspiring. A truly selfless goal. I am sure you will do magnificently. She smiled. Thanks, Ida. If you want to learn some hand-to-hand, I'll help, Kakin offered. So will I, Karo, Sue added. Yeah, I'm sure I can help you with your magic, I said. She smiled. Thank you all. I opened the door to the teacher's lounge. I thought back to earlier when I was about to leave the classroom. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Midoriya, Aizawa-sensei said, I'd like to speak to you when you have the time. Is something wrong? I asked. No, everything's fine. I'd just like to get your opinion on something. So I excused myself during the lunch break to see what he wanted. I saw that he was on the phone, so I decided to politely wait for him to finish. It wouldn't have been a bother at all, Obason. He growled to whoever was on the other side of the phone, presumably his aunt. Sonia offered to give me the other half of the conversation, but I declined. In fact, I would have loved to have her over. He made a frustrated noise, then took a deep breath. Yes, I haven't visited in a while. I apologize for that, but I would have preferred she'd been with me than having noon in an unfamiliar environment. He scoffed at something his aunt said. Okay, she's with a friend now, but what about before then? He sighed. Well, just so you know in the future, it wouldn't have been a bother at all. Your family. Goodbye. He hesitated for a bit. Love you too, he sheepishly added, then hanged up. He sighed. Why is my entire family so selfless? Aizawa turned to face me. I think maybe you are too, I said. You should probably be in the infirmary still. He pointedly cast regeneration again. I'm fine. Now, I'm sure you want to know why I want to talk to you. Was it related to magic? I asked. Yes. I managed to figure out some simple strengthening magic, and now I suppose I know some healing spells. He frowned. Saying this out loud feels like I'm playing some kind of RPG, but I guess that's life now. I laughed. Tell me about it. My quirk is literally video game logic. I thought for a bit. Aside from elemental magic, I do have a few spells I could give you. I took out another leaf and turned it into a scroll. Show off, he said as he placed it on his desk. I shrugged. Juniper, my new bio-elemental, can make scrolls really fast. I guess that makes sense. This scroll has some non-elemental spells you might find useful. Next, do you mind if I use Observe on you? Didn't you say you couldn't use that on me? I can now, because I leveled up enough. He nodded. Well then do it. Observe, I said. Oddly enough, he had 10 fire affinity. Did your father have a fire quirk? I asked. That's literally the only thing I knew about him. Why? I blinked. I was not expecting that. It was also kind of a coincidence, considering my father. Well, you have some fire affinity. I see. I made another scroll. These are some fire spells. Speaking of your parents, what's your mother's quirk? That might open up another elemental affinity for you. My mother's quirk was Gravitize. It let her erase gravity from an object by looking at it. I don't know where the quirk erasing part of my quirk comes from, but I at least know that my mother's quirk was the reason my hair floats when I use mine. His mom's quirk reminded me of Uraraka's. Actually, are you related to Uraraka? I asked. He blinked. How did you know? Yesterday, she said something about a cousin Shota who lives around here. You just said your mother had a gravity-nullifying quirk like hers, and I just heard you talking to your aunt about a situation that sounded a lot like Uraraka's. And then I pointed at what looked like a family portrait, and in hindsight, that little girl in the picture looks a lot like a young Uraraka. Yeah, he sighed. She doesn't recognize me, though. I'm kind of a bad cousin. Well, I can't tell you much about gravity magic that you probably wouldn't be able to guess on your own because I don't have it yet, but Uraraka could. I smiled, and at the same time, I'm sure she'd love combat lessons from her cousin, especially with the upcoming sports festival. She wants to do good, so she can help support her family. He grinned. Then he started laughing. You're good, problem child. I'll talk to her. I nodded. Then for the moment, let's start you off on fire. Make a ball of mana, then concentrate on merging it with fire. He made the ball of mana and closed his eyes. After a few moments of concentration, the mana ball became a fireball. There. What next? His level jumped up by 1 just from using fire magic for the first time. I noticed first with my classmates. It seemed like levels worked differently for people who weren't me. That's a basic fire spell right there. Just play around with that and other spells, and you should be good. I made another scroll and put it on the growing pile of scrolls on his desk. Aside from that, you might want to consider contracting elementals. They have trouble translating their magic to something we can learn sometimes, but they do help a lot. He stared at his fire. Thank you, Midoriya. Your help has been invaluable. His level wavered for a moment. This fire. No, this magic, I feel like I should be able to. The fire changed colors to indigo and black as it roared to new heights for a moment before he got a hold of it again. Aizawa's level started scrolling up and up until it reached 86, where it turned back into question marks. The heat from the fire fell, deeper than normal fire. That's not normal fire, I said. Obviously. No, but even in terms of magical fire, your level increased enough that I can't see it anymore. Sure, you were apparently only 7 levels from it before, but to level up 7 times at least from simply gaining the ability to use some kind of magic and not mastering it. He closed his hand, snuffing out that arcane fire. So are you saying I got stronger by simply using this blue fire? I shook my head. Not exactly. You might have, but it's more likely that it's just symbolic of how bad of an idea it would be to fight you. Levels seem to work that way for other people. But still, to gain so many levels at your level. The one thing I know for sure is that if you learn how to properly use whatever magic you just did, you probably won't have to worry about becoming more powerful anymore. He stared at his hand. Is that so? Thank you, Midoriya. Now could you please talk to Recovery Girl when you're done with work for the day? He snorted. Fine, problem child. Class was over for the day, so Uraraka opened the door to leave. She stopped, though, because there was a crowd of students in front of the doorway. "Why are you all here?" she asked. "Do you need us for something?" I asked. "They're scouting the competition," Kakin said as he walked up to them. "Checking out the class that fought a bunch of villains and won, right?" "So this is Class 1A," a voice from the back said. A very tired-looking boy with purple hair wilder than mine stepped forward. "Drowse. LV11. Shinso Hitoshi." He sneered. I wanted to be in the hero course, but my quirk wasn't suited to the entrance exams. Did you know that if someone from Gen Ed does well enough in the sports festival, they can get transferred to the hero course? In other words, I've come here as a declaration of war. I'll be gunning for one of your spots in the sports festival. "Oh, hey," I said. "We actually had someone drop out after." "Well, so you might get in if you try hard enough." He sighed. "F it, I was trying to be all cool." He shrugged. "Well, I guess that's ruined. Just know that I'm hoping to become one of your class." "Good luck," Uraraka said. Yeah. He waved as he walked away. "So, you guys reclass 1A, huh?" Someone else shouted, kicking Uriken all over the place. LV26. Tetsu. He had silver hair and, I think that was fur around his eyes. "You guys were the ones who were in that villain attack, weren't you?" Kakin glared at him. "What of it? I'm from Class 1B, and I'm here to check out the competition." "You're Class 1A. A third person shouted, a blonde this time. "Copycat." LV22. "Monoma Nito." He sneered at us. "How arrogant. First you hoard all the magic to yourself. Then you hoard all the media attention to yourself." "Okay, what was that last bit?" Kakin asked. He gave an arrogant pose. I'm pretty sure he copied that from a JoJo villain. Of course, you idiots of Class 1A just so happened to gain the attention of the media within the first month of class. How arrogant. An audible snap could be heard, followed by an oppressive, sweltering heat filling the room. An aura of fire surrounded Kakin. "What are you talking about?" He ground his teeth together. He looked like he was about to explode in more ways than one. "You know what? Curse you all. I'd have told you all how to do some magic. It's only fair. But if this is how you react to a class getting attacked by villains, then curse you. People almost died. I don't think anyone in the class would have actually asked for a villain attack. And here you jackasses are throwing yourselves a pity party over how you didn't get your 5 seconds of fame. F off." He vanished. With a low application of Space Invader, I was able to tell that the illusion barrier he made was filled with fire, and he'd already left. Most of the crowd softened a bit after having been told off. "Okay, you might have gone a bit too far there, Monoma." Tetsu said. Monoma harumphed. "If you guys wanted to learn magic, you could have asked," I said. "Aren't you worried about your friend?" Monoma sneered. "His temper could be a little explosive at times, as you just saw. It's best to give him a few minutes of alone time to cool down first. Now, just a quick show of hands. Who wants to learn some basic magic?" I counted the hands raised, then made a sheet of paper for each. "These are some basic non-elemental tricks and how to use affinity if you think you might have it. It might be a bad idea to disseminate some of the more advanced tricks to people without knowing how well they can be trusted with them. But at the very least, this is more than enough to, if you're good enough, figure out something good." I placed the papers on a nearby desk. Now I should probably go talk to him. I entered Kakin's still active illusion barrier. "Hey, Kakin," I said quietly and sat down next to him. I could guess from the ruined and smoldering building we were sitting in, but "How are you feeling?" He sighed. I exploded again. "It keeps on happening." He played around with a tiny, candle-sized flame, changing its shape and color. It didn't do anything like Aizawa-sensei's fire, though. I guess it was special or something. I'd have to ask him about it later. I shrugged. "Well, you did get angry because someone called the class arrogant for getting attacked by villains, which is probably among the better reasons to get angry. And you did manage to blow up in here, where you can blow off steam without damaging anything in the real world. Probably a lot better than getting into a fight or something." He chuckled. "What did I do to deserve a friend like you?" "Absolutely nothing." This made him laugh even more. After a while, he said, "I'm probably going to take up Hound Dog's offer." "Cool," I said. "I'm going to try to find that one Shinso guy who walked off and see if he wants to learn magic. He might be fun to have in class." Uraraka walked into the teacher's lounge with Tsu. "He, little listeners," Mike Sensei said when he noticed them. "What brings you here?" Aizawa Sensei asked to talk to me when class finished. Uraraka said, "Oh, is Shota finally talking to her?" Midnight Sensei butted in. "Wait, what?" Uraraka said. "I knew it," Tsu said, looking at something. Uraraka followed her gaze to Aizawa Sensei's desk, where she saw a family portrait. The same family portrait that was hanging on her family's wall, one of the few photos they had with both her and her cousin. "Shota." "Oh," Uraraka said. Then it hit her. "What?" she shouted, then felt her face heat up a bit. She slapped her hands to her face. "How did I never notice that? I even knew his quirk." Tsu patted her on the back. "It's okay, Ochako-chan. Nobody wants to believe that their cousin is a scruffy, grumpy hobo." The door to the teacher's lounge closed, and Uraraka turned to see Aiza, cousin Shota. "If I knew I was going to come back to my cousin's girlfriend calling me a scruffy, grumpy hobo, I'd have listened to more of Shizenji-san's rant." Uraraka felt her face heating up, and Tsu quickly removed her arm from her back. "Ribbit," she whimpered, her face bright red. "Ah, it's not like that," Uraraka said a little too quickly. "I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to, but she and I aren't." She stopped when she heard Mike Sensei and Midnight Sensei laughing. "That was a joke," Shota grinned. Then his face fell. "Sorry for not visiting ever. I don't really have an excuse." Uraraka shook her head. "No, it's okay. So, what did you need me for? Or was that what you wanted to talk about?" "No, I was actually going to talk about magic, though I was hoping to bring that up if I saw the opportunity." "Did Midoriya tell you elemental affinity can be inherited?" She nodded. "Yeah, I got something called particle affinity from Dad. I'm guessing you want tips on gravity?" "Yeah, I'll help you with fighting, too. I have it on good authority that you want to make a splash in the sports festival." Uraraka smiled. "Sounds great. If you don't mind, I'd also like some tips," Tsu said. In the weeks leading up to the sports festival, we saw a surprising amount of magical advancements in the world. Supernatural healing, which was once considered rare and often involved some sort of caveat that meant it couldn't be used freely, turned into a matter of training, skill, and mana, even if it was weaker. I actually did some volunteer work helping some local hospitals out with the spells, as well as the regular medical help I needed to do for Shizenji Sensei's healing course. While only lightning mana could be directly converted into electricity, special generators were built to use other kinds of mana as fuel, meaning more people could work at power plants and more clean energy. There was probably also research being done to use mana as it was. More water users meant improved water services. Construction businesses flourished with earth mages. Apparently, Uraraka's parents in particular gained some profit because she was able to use her elementals to get her parents a few interesting spells in their elements. She and Aizawa were really happy about that, actually. Conservation only benefited from a new wave of bio-elementalists and other kinds of magic users. In fact, I heard there was a group that was in the process of getting permits to use magic to deal with the trash in the sea and on the beaches better. Not to mention, even unexpected magic was incredibly useful in agriculture, so farms were able to produce more crops. I even heard about some experiments in infusing plants with magic, which sounded interesting. While there was unfortunately a bit of a rise in villain attacks with the advent of magic, pro-heroes were better able to combat it with the fact that hero agencies had more or less turned into modern-day mage guilds. I'm sure there was someone out there biding their time until they learned how to cast Ultima or raise Greater Undead. But at the same time, pro-heroes were organized, well-funded, and now produce their own spells, so they could handle it. I even saw on the news that the Wild Pussycats now had a series of cat-themed spells. There were still some limitations on dissemination of magical knowledge to the general public, but a few weak spells were made available to everyone. With the buzz about magic, I heard there were talks about reducing quirk and magic usage laws, which was exciting. I mean, I may or may not have been using my magic in public a bit already, but it'd be nice to be a bit less sneaky about it. "Poor thing," I said as I looked at the small, gold-furred cat that Juniper alerted me was in a nearby alley. She was missing part of her right foreleg, and the stump was bleeding. She had a few more scrapes, and her fur was dirty. She gave me a weak meow. I'd always liked cats, so I felt a pang in my heart to see one so hurt. What happened to you? Stray cat. LV6. Kitten. I reached my hand out to her, but she shied away. I concentrated, tried to use magic words to put my intention into what I was about to say. I want to help, I murmured in a soothing tone, then closed a pop-up for a new skill, Animal Whisperer. She looked a little bit calmer now. Good, now just hold. Still. I slowly reached my hand out to her, whispering affirmations to her. She let me touch her, and I activated healing hands. That's a good girl. I'm healing you now. Unfortunately, healing hands couldn't do much for her missing limb, but at least it wasn't bleeding anymore. After her wounds were dealt with, I gave her a quick rinse to clean her off, making sure to dry her off completely before she could get cold. Oddly enough, though, her temperature didn't drop at all from the water. She purred at me, now doing much better. She didn't have a collar, but does she have a chip on her I'm on? I asked. I don't think so, he said. I can't find anything like that on her. I grinned. Then I guess you're coming with me, girl. I picked her up. A cat with golden fur. I think I have the perfect name for you. She purred, and her fur glowed. She got really warm. Okay, never mind, Yang it is, I said. Stray cat. LV6. Yang. A cat with a quirk. I'd heard of people having pets with quirks before, but I wasn't entirely sure what the rules were. I assumed I'd have to register her, though. Don't you still have school today? Claude asked. I bolted up. Oh no. School. I looked at the time. Kakin was probably looking for me. I looked around for a place to put Yang, then had an idea. Were you taking so long? Kakin asked me when I ran up to him. I, had a magic thing? I said, then rubbed the back of my head. Wait, crud, that was the wrong hand. I quickly lowered my arm, but not before a meow escaped from my sleeve. Why did I just hear a cat? Kakin asked. Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's a cat nearby. Kakin looked around, then focused on my sleeve. I acted totally natural, nothing on my sleeves at all. For a second, I felt like he would buy it. He didn't buy it. Why, Deku, what's up your sleeve? He grabbed my hand a bit more forcefully than I'd have liked, causing it to fall out of my sleeve. What the actual F, he said after a few moments of holding my disembodied right hand. Stupid Raymond limbs. I muttered. Meow, Yang said as she poked her head out of my sleeve. To be honest, I wasn't entirely sure how my sleeve was staying in proper shape considering most of my forearm was made out of air, but it was somehow did. Is your arm a cat now? He looked between my still very much real hand and the cat's head coming from my sleeve. You know what? I'm going to hold your hand hostage until you explain. Not my hand, I shouted. I need that to not get arrested. I started trying to fly my hand out of Kakin's grasp. Because my hand was attached to a body part I turned to air, it could fly. Somehow, it wasn't strong enough to escape Kakin, though. Actually, I wondered how much of my body I had to turn into air before the rest would fly. I'd have to test that later. Stop muttering and answer the question. I wasn't just going to leave Yang there. She lost a leg. Kakin face-palmed, letting go of my hand. It floated back to Yang, and I scratched her chin with it before nudging her back so I could put my hand back in place. She was taking air embodiment surprisingly well. I was actually a little worried she'd activate her quirk. You named her already. In hindsight, though, I'm more surprised you haven't done something like this already. Actually, is it okay that the cat's breathing your arm? He stopped walking and just rubbed his temples. Hang on, I just need a moment to process how absurd that last sentence was. I've confirmed that it's perfectly safe for both me and whatever's breathing me. Same for other elements. And I'm sure someone said something like that before. He started walking again. Right? Your life is weird. Not going to give myself a headache. So how long can you do that? Partial embodiment is a lot less taxing than full embodiment. So it's just slightly more than what mantra gives me back. In fact, if I get another point of INT, then it might just break even. If I use meditate every so often, I'll be able to keep this up until we get home. Assuming we don't have practicals and hero studies today. He shrugged. F it, good for you. Now we should probably hurry as fast as we can without you jostling the cat. We're already a little late. I was walking in the hallway on my own when I heard a meow. I froze and so did Aizawa-sensei, who was walking past me. I silently pleaded with Sonia to help. She gave me a grin I could almost describe as like the Cheshire Cat's. Meow, she said, audibly. Even with gamer's mind, I could feel my heart pounding. I try not to let it show on my face. I tensed up, though, when Yang meowed again, though I noticed that Aizawa also grimaced. Yang pushed my hand out of the way, but at the same time a black cat with golden eyes poked her head out of Aizawa-sensei's capture weapon. Alley cat. LV4. Blake. I nodded at him. He nodded at me. Yang and Blake meowed at each other. I offered Aizawa-sensei my right arm in an invitation to pet Yang. He gratefully did so, then pointed to Blake. I used my floating right hand to pet her. We nodded to each other, then gently nudged our cats back into their hiding spots and walked away. I had to meditate in the bathroom for a bit because the stress of the moment deactivated mantra, though. We never talked about our encounter, though we did trade a few cat puns later in the day. I'm not an expert, but I think that makes us brothers. Hey, Mom, I said as I opened the door. I have something I'd like to ask you about. What is it, sweetie? I brought Yang out from behind my back. Her name is Yang. Mom sighed. Honey, you know a cat is a big responsibility. I promise I'll take good care of her. I promised. She frowned, then nodded after a moment of thought. All right, you can keep her. Thank you. I shouted. Oh, by the way, she has a quirk. Izuku. As it turned out, the Japanese government is very approving of quirky animals being pets with responsible owners, though there was some red tape surrounding it. It made sense that they wouldn't want animals who had no concept of quirk usage laws just roaming the streets. First, I had to get her registered and fitted with a special chip that could withstand a lot more heat than normal chips thanks to her fire-based quirk. Then we had to go to specialized classes for us to be able to deal with her if she activated her quirk. I also got a good prosthetic for her with some of the money I got for various prizes related to Discovery Magic. Thanks to Animal Whisperer, I gained an increased understanding of all animals. After a few talks with Yang, I could pretty much speak cat, which was neat. I was hoping to get a familiar skill, though. Even if I never use Yang like a proper familiar, a familiar skill might give me access to her quirk. I burn, which would be nice. For my preparation for the sports festival, I decided to focus mainly on DX and INT, because I was more or less indestructible due to damage reduction and elemental embodiment. I didn't need to worry about VIT at all. Because of that, I decided to focus on my original idea I'd had before Roaring Muscles to train my DX, though with INT training as well to power up my magic. It was close, but a few days before the sports festival I got both above 100. DX gave me 3 skills: Light Step, Flash Step, and Weird Flex. Light Step was the next version of Fleetfoot, and Flash Step was, well, a Flash Step. I could use MP to cross a few meters in the blink of an eye. Weird Flex had a fitting name. It seemed to just make me disturbingly flexible. The flavor text implied that it was what made contortionists contortionists, and I couldn't really disagree with that. It seemed like it'd be useful, though, because it was a passive that didn't use MP. Raising INT gave me Mana Talent, I for Magic, and Open Mind. Mana Talent, like Light Step, was a better mana affinity. I for Magic, which I got because I had an eye-enhancing spell, was a spell that allowed me to see magic, which was absurdly useful. I could probably copy spells just by looking at them, for one. It gave me really bad eye strain, though. Open Mind was also a potentially useful spell. The flavor text said it was Mind Magic, which was useful in and of itself because it gave me a base for mind magic, and it allowed me to hear other people's thoughts. While I used it, I was able to hear the internal monologues of everyone in the spell's radius, and could hone in on one person in particular. I wouldn't use it much because it was clearly an invasion of privacy, but I was sure I could put a good use. With my stats where I wanted them, I spent the rest of the time before the sports festival practicing various spells and skills. The day of the sports festival, I knew I was ready. Security was up for the sports festival. I was mostly fine getting through because I had a student ID, but there were still some precautions. I saw some pro heroes on my way to the stadium, too. Everyone was tense as we changed into our gym uniforms. It was to be expected. Not only was the event televised, but our careers as heroes may have depended on how well we did. No pressure. We'll be entering the stadium soon, everyone. Ida shouted when we were all in the waiting room. Please prepare yourselves physically and mentally. Midoriya, a voice that I only partially recognized, said. What's up, Todoroki? I asked him. He glared at me. You may have your magic, and you may have some kind of support from All Might, but I plan to beat you. He turned around and started to walk away. What's your problem? Half and half. Kakin asked. Yeah. What's with the declaration of war? Kirishima asked. Todoroki, I said. He stopped for a moment. I'm aiming for the top 2, I told him. He scoffed and walked away. To be honest, I probably would have been very nervous if it weren't for Gamer's Mind. There were just so many people in the stands. I guess maybe between the USJ incident and the fact that it was known generally that the Discoverer of Magic was in 1A, the first-year festival was the place to be. I made sure to look confident when we were walking in. I even used Hawkeye because I was technically allowed to for what I hoped was added impressiveness. President Mike introduced each of the classes as they entered the field to thunderous applause. Midnight Sensei, who was acting as referee, brandished her whip thing. Now for the pledge, we have Bakugo Katsuki from 1A. Kakin walked up to the podium and took the mic and to keep this brief, because I'm pretty sure none of you are here to listen to me talk. I'm going to be aiming for the top. He looked sternly at all of the classes assembled. If any of you are going to do the same, you'd freaking better have a good reason. Oh, thank goodness he didn't rile up the other classes too much. The people in the stands cheered at his speech, short as it was. I even saw some people from the other classes grinning. Ding. A quest has been created. Sports Festival. The UE Sports Festival is the biggest event of the year. You'd better do your best. Completion. Further rewards depending on how well you do. I figured I'd get a quest at some point. It was interesting that there weren't any losing conditions, though. I guess it'd be a win even if I lost in the first round, though I'd lose out on anything that wasn't the question mark if I did that. Speaking of the first round, give it up for Bakugo, ladies and gents. Midnight said. Now, let's get on with the first event. She raised her whip, and a giant holoscreen appeared in the air above her. It cycled through a few different things before settling on the obstacle race. I guess it's going to be an obstacle course, I muttered, grinning. I could probably do pretty well in an obstacle course with my power set. I did a few stretches while we waited at the start of the course. Everyone was in front of a large hallway that looked like it was supposed to bottleneck us if we all rushed through it, which we probably would considering the fact that it was a race. Oh my gosh, Deku, what's wrong with your spine? Uraraka shouted at me. Huh? I looked down. Oh, my body was twisted almost all the way around. Yeah, that probably looked bad. Spines are not supposed to do that. Sue added, a little greener than usual. Sorry, I said, untwisting myself. Forgot how flexible I got from getting the next EX benchmark. We're starting soon. Ida shouted. Sorry. The countdown started. Begin. Midnight shouted when it reached 0. A low hum came from me as I activated Sonic Aura. Lightning Aura would have been faster, but at the same time it might have hurt someone in the close quarters. It wasn't for long, though. I ran and jumped with all of my strength, landing on a platform made by Halidus in midair. Without wasting a moment, I switched to lightning and shot forward. At my top speed, I was easily able to outpace the slowed crowd, dropping back down when I was ahead of everyone. I did notice Kakin and Uraraka flying behind me, though. Because I was so ahead of everyone else, I was the first to notice hordes of robots waiting on the other side of the bottleneck, with 3 giant ones in the middle. It looked like they were recycling the robots from the entrance exam. I jumped between a series of air platforms, the final one lining me up perpendicular to the center of one of the 0-pointers. I jumped at it with everything I had, using Fire Dash to propel myself even more. Just before I hit the robot, I switched to Magma Aura for more power and durability and created a lightning enhanced spiked gauntlet to punch it with for extra piercing damage. I distantly heard Mike Sensei commenting about me. The 0-pointer fell, and I rode it down in the crater I'd punched in it. When it was done falling, I reached out for a bit of the robot's metal hull that was less heated than where I'd hit it and was by the robot's head a moment later. I promised myself to not overuse elemental embodiment because of how broken Sonic embodiment in particular could be in a race with how it might as well be a short-range teleport with how it worked, but I was fine with a momentary use of lightning embodiment. I used the momentum I somehow still had after downgrading to lightning aura to race past the robots. For the most part, one didn't bother fighting them. I was just fast enough that they couldn't really catch me, and I guess they were programmed to not chase any students who got through them. I did disable a few for EXP, though, in one robot. I got an idea as I was approaching a two-pointer. It looked like it would just barely fit. I pointed at it, and Raimon appeared on top of it. He placed his hands on it, causing it to retract its limbs and make itself as small as possible. I opened my inventory, made it go as wide as I could make it, and rammed into the two-pointer inventory first. Luckily, I was right, and it disappeared in front of me, sucked into my inventory. I have to ask about bringing it back out in the middle of a game, but it seemed like a good ace up my sleeve. I made it to the next obstacle with a huge gap between me and the rest of the contestants. Kakin, Uraraka, and Todoroki were closer, but there was still some distance between us. I stared at the gaping hole in the ground in front of me, then at the stone pillars with tight ropes connecting them. There is no way they did this without a lot of earth mages, I muttered. And how did nobody see this giant chasm by the arena? I guess it doesn't matter, though. What matters for now? I gathered air mana on my back, is getting across. Because the sports festival was an opportunity to impress the hero agencies of Japan, I decided to not use the same few tricks over and over again. And so the air mana I was gathering formed into great wings of swirling green air. Halcyon wing, I intoned. I flapped them once, sending up a cloud of dust before the air stilled unnaturally. After seeing Kakin use Fire Dash and Uraraka gravity magic to fly, I decided to find a way for people to fly using any element. Much like how people with healing quirks were almost always given priority for medical training, assuming they were competent enough for medical work, competent and powerful enough flyers were practically assured to get into hero schools simply on account of how useful flight is in hero work. Having flight as a relatively easily teachable skill seemed like the sort of thing that would be very useful for heroes in general. My favorite of the flight spells I'd made was an air spell, Halcyon Wing. It was a little costly, but it looked so pretty and had the ability to calm the surrounding air. I jumped as high as I could, then flapped my wings. As a side effect of its air calming, Halcyon Wing reduced the amount the air resisted my passage, making me fly even faster. A few students shot some generic spells at me, but I was easily able to dodge them. I dropped onto a tree on the other side of the obstacle and undid my wings. They unraveled in a shower of feathers that I grabbed with my magic, causing them to swirl around me. I used up a few of the feathers to chop off the branch I was standing on, then started using bio-magic on the branch as it fell back onto the course. It grew into a small tree with an unusual root system, which drove itself into the ground in 4 parts like legs. I gripped onto the tree's trunk, using a thickened branch as a foothold. Bio-magic was really fun once you got used to it. I made my tree walker go forward and, now that I was going slower, started listening to the commentary. And Midori is still in the lead, now with some weird plant thing. Mike-sensei shouted. That's probably his bio-magic, Aizawa-sensei said. Among other things, he can use it to alter the shape of and control plants. To be honest, it just looks like he's showing off now. To be fair, isn't that the point of the sports festival? Aizawa-sensei shrugged. I suppose. And speaking of showing off, it looks like Todoroki's using some kind of ice platform and probably ice magic to fly over the chasm. That's certainly one way to do it. I came up on the final obstacle of the race, the minefield. I'd seen it with Hawkeye while I was flying, which was why I'd made the tree walker. Though I was paying for that now, as Kakin, Todoroki, and Uraraka were approaching behind me. I lengthened my walker's roots and increased the amount of mana I was using to make it walk, letting it go faster. I also gave it a speed up and started preparing a backup plan for when they caught up. Because of my walker's thin roots, it was able to step around the mines, and for the few that it stepped on in my rush, its roots were sufficient enough to not get blown away, which was why I'd used 4 legs in the first place. F it, Deku, you won't win that easily. Kakin shouted from behind me. He and Todoroki were approaching quickly, with Uraraka just a bit behind them. I shot my remaining feathers in front of them, blowing up the mines. They were still gaining, though, so I pushed my walker even faster, then switched spells when they were just barely behind me. Jets of steam burst from my hands and feet, propelling me forwards and blowing the 2 back into some mines. I hit the ground running, keeping ahead of the others. With the lead I'd given myself, I was able to run to the end without anyone passing me. And in first place we have Midoriya Izuku. Mike-sensei shouted. The crowd was cheering for me. I grinned at All Might, who I saw smiling at me in the stands. The next game of the sports festival will be a cavalry battle. Midnight Sensei announced once everyone was back in the stadium. That was kind of good for me. I'd had an idea for a spell about a week ago that I thought I wouldn't be able to use in the sports festival because it was pretty much only useful on allies. The display changed too. Show what looked like the points each of the people who made it got, sorted by position. I looked at number 1 for the point total I had. 10 million. It looked like there was a bonus for getting in first place, because up until first the points increased by 5 per position. Here's how it works. The points of each member of the teams will be added together and put on a headband, which will be worn by your rider. You're supposed to steal those headbands, which is how you get points. Those headbands must be worn from the neck up, so getting a lot will get annoying fast. And of course, the person to beat is Midoriya, with 10 million points. Whoever has that by the end is pretty much assured to get to the next round. Oh, I said, SHD. That was not good. I had a giant target on my back now, or rather my forehead. You guys will have 15 minutes to find your team and come up with a plan, starting now. Have fun. I gulped. My work would certainly be cut out for me. Even with my powers, the whole everyone will be getting out for you. If you team up with me, things sounded like it would make it hard to find willing teammates. I tried a few people, but they all shied away. Are you still looking for teammates, Deku? Uraraka asked me from behind. I turned around. Are you sure about this, Uraraka? And not that I'm not grateful, but I'm pretty sure just about everyone will be going after us because I got first last round. She nodded, a determined look on her face. And that makes it even better. Everyone's eyes are going to be on our team, so I'll definitely get noticed if I'm on your team. She seemed to realize how what she said could be taken and blushed a bit. Not that I don't want to help you, Deku. It's just, I smiled. Yeah, I get it. Come on, I think I know who else we can use. I scanned the crowd for a moment and almost immediately spotted him. I ran over to him. Ida, if it's not too much of a bother, would you like to be on my team? He hesitated for a moment, then gave one of his deep bows. I'm sorry, Midoriya. It's just, I don't want to be in your shadow for the sports festival. I nodded. I understand. I'll go try and find someone else. I walked away a bit. How'd it go? Uraraka asked, having just caught up to me. I shook my head. Ida didn't want to be in our group. We need to find someone else. I looked at the countdown. Half the time was up already, and we should probably do it fast. Oh, so you need another person? A loud voice said. Well, that's perfect. I turned around to see a girl with pink dreadlocks wearing a pair of steampunk-ish goggles on her forehead. Her yellow eyes had crosshairs on them. The name's Hatsume, and I'm your answer. With my babies, you'll be sure to win. What's with the support gear? Uraraka asked. Aren't we not supposed to have them? You're a support student, right? I asked, and I'm guessing your babies are support items? She grinned wider and got up in my face. Oh, you're a smart one. Yes, of course my babies are wonderful, wonderful gadgets that heroes across the globe will use. Eventually, and everyone's eyes will be on you, the holder of the 10 million points, so if I show off my babies in your team, I'm sure to get good rep. I smiled, but backed up a bit. Having some support gear will be awesome. I had an idea. Actually, I just thought of something. We'll need another person, and I'll probably have to talk to Midnight Sensei about this, but... Hatsum. Yes. I'll use my magic to help, but we might need to make temporary modifications to your babies. Is that okay? She nodded energetically. Of course, so long as you can put them back. I'd also love to see magic being used. I might be able to make even better babies. Good. And I'll also try to teach you a spell I learned recently that lets me see magic, because to be honest, I really want to see that. You might be able to do it relatively easily, if your quirk is base like I'm assuming. She cackled and nodded. And finally, how good are you at hacking? She rubbed her hands together. Adopting a new baby? I like the sound of this. Isn't it more like kidnapping and brainwashing someone else's baby? Uraraka asked, poking her chin. We got a lot of work to do, I said, but if we split up, we should be able to get done on time. So the cavalry battle's about to start, Mike-sensei said, and I've just got to say, I strapped myself into the harness Hatsum had thoughtfully made for me, so that I wouldn't fall while I was meditating, because I really needed to use meditation for my crazy plan to work. Is that one of the robots from earlier? The two-pointer that I'd stowed in my inventory during the obstacle race. I was sitting on the center of the robot's torso, which thankfully acted a bit like a platform. Uraraka and Hatsum were by the front of the robot, with Hatsum arm deep in the robot's gut still. Our final teammate, Tokoyami, was by the back of the robot due to its size. While I was the only one with a harness, my teammates had bits of scrap metal that Uraraka had magnetized that let them stick to the robot, but still allowed them to move if they needed to. Too loud, Mike Aizawa complained. And yes, that is one of the robots from earlier. The problem child argued that if his teammate, Hatsum, modified and hacked the robot, then it would be her creation, and therefore, as she is a support student, her team would be allowed to use it. He sighed, and apparently the principal specifically wrote into the rules that hacking the robots is okay, so it's not even technically a loophole. When I asked Nedzu about it, he just maniacally laughed. To be honest, I probably should have seen that coming. Probably. And by the way, the cavalry battle begins in about 1 minute, so get ready. I took a deep breath and focused on my mana. A ball of faintly glowing light blue mana appeared on my chest, and 3 tendrils of mana extended from it. The tendrils touched my teammates on the chest, forming balls of mana on their chests like mine. Bestow, a spell I thought of that allowed me to share my mana with others, though there was a bit of mana lost. So interesting. Hatsum shouted as she poked the ball of mana on her chest, her eyes glowing. She was actually pretty good with magic, judging from how quickly she'd picked up Eye for Magic. Tokoyami put a hand up to his mana ball. I feel power flowing through me, he muttered. I nodded. Just remember that even with meditation, I have a limited amount of mana. And there's 3 of you, which means that my mana will be split between you. We should be fine if only one person does something big a time. So, coordinate your spells. On 3, Midnight shouted. And finally snap me out of it if we need something big, and I'll use Limit Break, I said quickly, then activated Mana Dome and Meditation. Begin, Midnight shouted. I couldn't really see much of what was happening at first because of how I was meditating and in the center of the robot. However, after a few moments, it seemed like Bestow started to synergize with Open Mind and possibly even meditate Tactician and the party we'd made because I was able to see through my teammates' eyes. I'm mostly focused on Uraraka because Tokoyami was watching the rear and Hatsum was piloting the robot. I kept a bit of an eye on Hatsum, though, because I hoped to absorb some of her mechanical expertise. Uraraka saw that a lot of the teams made a beeline straight for us. One of the teams used some sort of ground-softening quirk. I'm going to lower gravity, Uraraka shouted. Hit the jets, Hatsum. I felt a sudden drain on my mana coming from Uraraka. A pink glow spread from her body, engulfing the entire robot. Hatsum activated the robot's jets, and despite its weight it flew. Tokoyami deflected a few shots that came after us with Dark Shadow. When we touched down, the robot sank a bit. Hatsum looked down at the legs and saw some mud, using Eye for Magic. Someone's attacking my new baby with water magic, she shouted. Uraraka looked around and saw Tsu and someone from Gen Ed that I didn't know very well riding on Shoji's back. Tsu-chan, she shouted. Tsu spat out a glob of water, which shaped itself like a buzzsaw. Ochako-chan, I'm sorry to do this, but... Well, I'm not at all, Hatsum shouted, then laid her hands on the robot. She stared at her hands with Eye for Magic as she poured mana into the robot. She, and therefore I, could see how the mana interacted with the technology. I heard a text box open as I learned the skill from her. Blue lines spread across the robot, and Hatsum's vision changed to the robot's camera. She shot a net at Tsu's team, entangling them, and made the robot carefully step out of the mud. DKU, your robot won't save you now. All 3 of my teammates turned in unison to see Kaken's team. Kaken jumped off of Kirishima, his front horse, and started flying at us with Fire Dash. Tokoyami had Dark Shadow curl around me protectively. He's going after my baby. Hatsum screeched. I got this, Uraraka shouted. She slapped her hands on the robot, blue sparks springing into existence and traveling over to the leg Kaken was aiming for. When Kakin tried to explode the leg, it just compressed a bit before springing back with a wave of energy. Kakin was knocked back, but another one of his horses, Ciro, grabbed him with his tape. "Get us out of here, Hatsum! What did you do to my baby?" Hatsum demanded as the robot ran. I temporarily messed with the strength and stuff of the armor using particle magic. I can do that to my skin too. It feels really weird. If I wasn't drawing in the energy of the world, or however meditation worked, I'd have asked how that worked. It sounded interesting. A few teams moved to intercept us. "I'll be taking your headband," Midoriya, Todoroki said. Kaminari. His teammates were Yaoyorozu and Kaminari in the back, on roller skates that I assumed Yaoyorozu made, and Ida in the front. Yaoyorozu made a sheet and a grounding rod, while Kaminari started to build up lightning. "I believe my power will be the most useful in this situation," Tokoyami said. "My comrades, please allow me to complete access Midoriya's font of power." Tokoyami drained my MP even faster than meditation could bring it back. In return, a shroud of near total darkness engulfed the world. "Primordial void," he intoned. Through Hatsum's enhanced eyes, I could just barely see Corvo and Dark Shadow emerge, though Dark Shadow was so big that it dwarfed our robot. I remembered what he said about how Dark Shadow got stronger but harder to control the darker it was. "Now, my minions of Shadow, let's have a true revelry in the dark." Dark Shadow rushed forward, with Corvo riding him and seemingly controlling him, or at least directing him. Kaminari shot most of his lightning at Dark Shadow, or at least I think that's what happened in the gloom. It wasn't very effective with such poor light, and it seemed that the dark magic was dampening the lightning itself somehow. Dark Shadow raged, knocking back all of the teams. The drain on my MP abated, and the black shroud started to fade away. "Run, Hatsum!" Tokoyami shouted. "Away from Todoroki's team." "I can see," she shouted as the robots started running away. Tokoyami saw Todoroki freeze out the other teams in the confusion, and then Ida shouting something. Todoroki made a ramp of ice, and Ida shot off faster than I'd ever seen him run before. Tokoyami made to intercept with Dark Shadow, but Todoroki's team sped up even more as the ice at the tip of the ramp exploded, and then Kaminari shot a bolt of lightning at Dark Shadow that stunned it. Yaoyorozu shot a miniature cannon past Tokoyami. I opened my eyes just in time to get hit in the back of my head with the cannonball that shattered my mana dome. It didn't hurt, but it was really jarring. Because I'd flinched from the hit, I wasn't able to react in time to stop Todoroki from snatching my headband. Their team landed on a platform of ice, then slid down the slide that Todoroki turned it into. I took stock. The two skills that I'd learned, sight sharing and technomancy, wouldn't be very useful. However, we already had everything we needed to get that headband back. "Ditch the robot and go after them, guys," I shouted. Luckily, Todoroki didn't think to melt the slide. Actually, I couldn't remember him ever using his fire in battle. That probably wasn't a good sign. My teammates jumped into the formation that we discussed on the slide, and I used Sonic Embodiment to take my place as the rider. Tokoyami used Dark Shadow to push us down, and I used Speed Up on my teammates. Now that I wasn't using Meditate, which didn't let me use Observe while I was using it, Tactician told me that Ida's engines were stalled by whatever special move he'd used. That move wiped out Ida's quirk for the rest of the game, so we have a chance. "Get me close." Uraraka lowered our gravity, letting us run faster. I noticed that the robot was tailing behind us, but I didn't give it much thought. We got within range, and Todoroki's eyes widened as his left arm caught fire. A quick reaction. I slashed my arm at him with wind mana, blowing his defenses away, then used a light amount of one for all to grab the golden headband. They'd flipped the headband around and mixed up their order to try and trick us, but with Observe and Tactician, that meant nothing to me. "We're flying away," I shouted, activating the jetpack I hadn't had to use yet in the cavalry battle. Uraraka used a mixture of her quirk and gravity magic to lift us out of there. Apparently the reason why she got such bad nausea when she used her quirk on herself was because she was resistant to it, but she didn't have as much of a problem with gravity magic. "DKU!" Kakin screamed at me, flying toward us. It looked like he was back to attacking us. Uraraka, my baby, Hatsum shouted. Uraraka got what she meant immediately and pointed at the two-pointer, which jumped and started using its jets. Uraraka pulled on bestow again, causing the robot to glow pink and start flying. It intercepted Kakin, but it looked like Uraraka did the strengthening spell again. This time, though, well, whatever the spell did, it didn't completely solve the problem of Newton's third law of motion. The robot absorbed all of the force, yes, but when it rebounded the force, it was weightless. My baby, Hatsum shrieked as the robot was repulsed away from Kakin. I didn't want a giant robot, even a giant robot with the weight of the beach ball, crashing into the stands, or even worse, the stalls outside. So I grabbed it with mana rope and braced myself on an air platform. I swung the robot down to try to take some of the motion off. Get on the robot, I shouted after getting the robot to only be slowly falling. We landed on it, and I started meditating again to help with keeping us lightly falling. And Team Midoriya are back just in time for the end of the cavalry battle. Mike Sensei shouted when we touched down. The game was totally crazy, but now it's OER. In first place, we have Team Midoriya, clearly, Aizawa Sensei said. Second place is Team Todoroki. Third is Bakugu, and fourth is. It looks like Team Shinso snatched a few last-minute points. Impressive. We'll be taking a lunch break, but we'll move on to the final games after the break, folks. Stay tuned. I dropped off of the robot, not waiting for Hatsum to lower it. Are you okay, Midoriya? Yaoyorozu asked me, rubbing her elbow. Oh, I'm fine, I reassured her. I can fall from higher than that without any problem. No, I mean from when I shot you. That looked like it hurt. I shook my head. No, it was more surprising than anything. My mana dome probably took most of the hit, and my quirk is really overpowered. I think I wouldn't be too hurt if All Might were to punch me in the face. She nodded. That's impressive. I still apologize, though. I was aiming to just pop your barrier, but we were going very fast, so it's fine. After we left to get lunch, Todoroki stopped me and rather forcefully asked to meet me alone. I saw no reason not to, so I followed him to an abandoned hallway. What did you need me for? I asked. Did you get hurt in the cable? I was overwhelmed. He glared at me. Your power. I only saw it once, but it reminded me of All Might. I'm pretty sure All Might doesn't use wind magic. He just punches the air hard enough that it looks like he does. I don't mean your magic. You did. Something that wasn't magic. How did you know? I can sense magic. And that sudden movement you did, it was more like All Might's quirk than magic. I blinked. I'm sorry. Did you just say you can sense magic? And considering how All Might seems to be supporting you, I have to ask one thing. I gulped. I didn't know what he was going to say, but he was getting pretty close to the truth. Are you All Might's secret love child or something? I spluttered. Wow, I wish I was All Might's secret love child. All I know about my dad is that he had some kind of fire-breathing quirk and curly white hair, and that he owes us a lot in child support. Regardless, you clearly have some kind of connection to All Might. Just know that I must beat you. You see, my father is an ambitious man. He wanted to be the #1 hero and wasn't even satisfied with second place. His voice became ice cold, and so he made me to carry out his ambitions. What do you mean, made you? His quirk involved 2 separate powers, even stated and observed to be 2 quirks in one body. It reminded me of that Nometh thing. Are you aware of quirk marriages? Oh, in hindsight, that was the more likely conclusion. Probably worse, though. He snarled. My father used his influence to put pressure on my mother's family, forcing an arranged marriage. It took him 4 tries, but he finally made me his masterpiece and trained me relentlessly. My mother hated my left side. I don't blame her. It's his. I'm not a psychologist or a core counselor. Yet, but that seriously did not sound like a good sign, psychologically speaking. I remember one time, she was talking to someone on the phone about my left half. Seriously, I could tell Tokoyami was joking whenever he called his power a curse. But it seemed that Todoroki genuinely felt that the entire left half of his body and the power it gave him was some sort of, well, curse. She saw me and threw boiling hot water at me face, as you can see. As you probably noticed by now, my left side is heat resistant, but not fireproof. Yeah, I may not have a fire quirk, but I still have some weak fire resistance from my dad. Speaking of which, I suddenly feel very grateful my jackass fire breather dad was an absent jackass fire breather father. I envy you for your absent parent. You know, if you want, I could try to heal that scar. It's obviously tied to some serious trauma, and I figure not seeing it in the mirror would ease some of the pain. He shook his head. No, my purpose was to tell you this. I plan to deny my father the satisfaction of using his fire. I'll defeat you without ever using my left side again. This I can promise you. He started to walk off, leaving me in thought. I stepped behind him a moment later and put my hand on his right shoulder. You do realize I'm going to have to report this, right? His head whipped back. What? One of the stipulations of Shuzenji Sensei's training program. If I find evidence of any of my classmates being abused, I'm to report it to her or another teacher, with or without their permission. Even if I wasn't, though, I wouldn't just take that and say nothing. What kind of hero would I be if I learned my classmate was being abused and didn't say anything? I appreciate the offer, but Endeavor's influence is too much. He always boasts how, if we did do anything, he'd have his people on it. He shuddered, and then he'd punish us. Have you ever actually done anything? I asked. I just said. You said what he told you. I corrected. A few years before Endeavor's debut, there was obviously another hero in the number 2 spot. Undertow. He had a flashy, powerful water quirk that let him shoot water from any part of his body, and lots of it. To be honest, it'd be pretty funny how similar he was to Endeavor if it didn't extend to the point of abusing his daughter in the form of training. Apparently, he even married a telekinetic so he could get a child with hydrokinesis, much like with your situation. What happened? It took a while, but Undertow's sister reported him. She'd known for a while, but he'd threatened to do something to his daughter if she did. I wiped a giant tear from my eye and sniffed. It wasn't publicized much because people were afraid that a pro of that ranking turning out to have done something like that could have triggered massive unrest, but Undertow was arrested and some of his charges were released, enough that nobody would question the arrest. He's still behind bars today. I smiled. And at the same time, I'm sure All Might would be willing to help you if he heard what happened. And I doubt that the influence of the number 2 hero outstrips that of the symbol of peace. Todoroki nodded. I'll take your word for it. Though, how do you know about Undertow if, as you said, the whole story was suppressed? My grandmother told me about it. I used some magic on my tear ducts, causing a massive amount of water to pour from them. Then I wiped off my face and shirt because I didn't put any pressure into it, making the water dribble all over me. She didn't want me to repeat her mistake. Todoroki blinked. Wait, so are you saying? Undertow is my great-uncle, yes. We don't talk about him much, though, because of the whole, I see. You have my condolences. If I may ask, would it be possible for you to get me in contact with Undertow's daughter? I rubbed the back of my head. That won't be possible, unfortunately. For one, she kind of hated my grandmother. Okay, not exactly hate per se, but, well, Grandma didn't blame her, what with how she didn't say anything about the abuse for a while. And I think Undertow made it worse somehow. When was the last time I talked to my siblings? Todoroki muttered. Yeah, child abuse is pretty awful, I said. Anyway, I think she reached out to my mom a few times, but, well, then she died. I'm sorry for your loss. I shrugged. I didn't even know her. Well, I didn't know her personally. I knew a lot about her. She was actually a pro hero. Was that? How's she? I gave him a small nod. The hero duo Water Hose. A husband and wife pair. About 2 years ago, they sacrificed themselves to take out a dangerous villain with a powerful enhancement quirk. But enough about my messed up family. I won't force you to go to Shizenji Sensei now, but when the sports festival is over we are talking to him, even if I have to drag you there myself. He grunted. Fine. If it will really destroy my father, then I'll happily talk to Shizenji Sensei. That's probably not quite the healthiest thing to say, but it's better than not telling anyone about the abuse, so I'll let it slide, I muttered. Todoroki shrugged and started to walk off. This time I let him. We were gathered back in the arena field. Midnight explained to us how the next part of the sports festival would go. For the teams who won the cavalry battle, there was the combat tournament. The rules were simple. In each fight, we had to either incapacitate our opponents or remove them from the arena. And before the tournament, There would be other games that everyone could participate in. Even the tournament combatants could attend them. But Midnight Sensei suggested we not do that because we should conserve our stamina. That really wasn't an issue for me, but I decided not to participate in those battles because it could be unfair to the others. Before we drew lots to see our placement, Ojiro raised his hand. "I'd like to withdraw from the tournament," he declared. "Oh," Midnight said. "What brought this on? You do realize you're probably going to miss out on a chance to be scouted, right?" He grimaced. "I don't even remember the cavalry battle. I don't want to move on to the tournament if I didn't even really do anything." "Whoa, that's so manly," Kirishima yelled. The other member of Team Shinso, Narinjiki from Class 1B, raised his hand. "I'd also like to withdraw for the same reason." Midnight grinned. "I like your spirit. All right, you two are out of the tournament. Now I need to get some students to replace them." After that, it was agreed that Tetsu and Shiozaki Ibara from 1B would take their places. We all drew the lots, deciding who we'd fight and in what order. It was just my luck that I was in the first match against Shinso. And then I'd probably have to face off against Todoroki after winning that. "Midoriya, right?" Someone asked me from behind. I turned to see Shinso. I opened my mouth to say something, but Ojiro's tail wrapped around my face before I could. "Don't say anything," he cautioned me. Shinso snorted. I removed Ojiro's tail from my face. "Because of his quirk, right?" I asked. Shinso stiffened. "If I had to guess, it's a mental quirk. Some sort of mind control tied to people responding to something you say." He sighed. "Yeah, that's about right. It sounds amazing for hero work. Too bad the entrance exam was robots, huh?" Shinso stared at me incredulously. "You don't think my quirk is villainous?" I shrugged. "Quirks aren't really villainous." "Well, if you have a sentient quirk like Tokoimi's Dark Shadow that actively wants to be a villain, then you could make that argument. But quirks are normally controlled by the user. They're tools." I pointed at him. "If you use your quirk for hero work, then you have a hero's quirk. And if you use your quirk for villainy, then you have a villain's quirk. Still, your quirk would let you de-escalate hostage situations and other villain attacks without having to fight. And even if you have to fight, then there's always the possibility of a villain slipping up in the middle of battle. To be honest, I'd place a mind-controlling quirk like yours pretty high on the list of quirks I'd like if I didn't have mine." Shinsu's face softened. "You know, Midoriya, you're the first person I've met who didn't call my quirk villainous. You should probably sue your quirk counselor for malpractice, then." He chuckled, then turned around. "You're a good man, Midoriya. I won't bother you again." "Wait." He stopped. "I think it's only fair if you know a few things about me. First, there's a pretty good chance, depending on how our quirks work, that your quirk won't affect me right or might even just fail to work on me." He raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "My quirk, the gamer, works somewhat along the lines of RPG logic, meaning that among other things I have passive skills that grant me various affects," I explained. "One of them is Gamer's Mind, which came with my quirk. It says that I have immunity to psychological status effects." "I see. I mean, I'll try not to get hit by your quirk anyway, because that's very unspecific, but I just thought you should know. I also have two other passives I think you should know about: physical endurance and damage reduction. So let me guess, physical attacks are useless on you." "Not useless, but they do so little that to you it might as well be. Magical attacks aren't included in physical endurance, so comparatively speaking, that's my weakness." He sighed. "I guess I know what I'll be doing during the break." I observed him. "You have affinity for the sonic element, by the way. I'm guessing it's either because of your voice-based quirk, or if any of your relatives have a more traditional sound quirk, or maybe both." "So I have sound magic?" he asked. I nodded. "Good to know. Thanks, Midoriya. Was that really a good idea?" Ojiro asked after he walked away. Even with what I told him, he's probably not going to beat me, considering our stats and abilities, I said. And if he displays more than just dependence on a powerful supporting quirk, then he's more likely to get in the hero program, I guess. "Seriously, are you two dating yet?" Kakin asked Sue and Uraraka now that we were in the stands watching the pre-tournament game. "What makes you think that?" Sue asked, blushing slightly. Kakin raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" Uraraka hid her blush behind Sue's hair. It was easy to do, between Sue having a lot of hair and the fact that Sue was literally sitting on Uraraka's lap, and snuggling up against her. In my defense, I like body heat because I'm a frog, Sue muttered. Kakin shrugged. Sure, why not? He then turned his attention back to me. He knocked on his seat in the passcode, so I invited him to my party. Acrid thermogenesis. Hey, don't be mad. Acrid thermogenesis. But I may or may not have eavesdropped on your conversation with half and half. Acrid thermogenesis. Eavesdropped. Acrid thermogenesis. What the actual F is my name, Deku? I sighed. I really should have noticed him. Actually, one of my elementals should have told me he was there. Conjuring Gamer. Don't eavesdrop on other people's private conversations, Kakin. Conjuring Gamer. This is your punishment. Acrid thermogenesis. Oh no, you and your stupid references. Conjuring Gamer. How? Exactly. Do you get what this is a reference to anyway? Acrid thermogenesis. F. Acrid thermogenesis. U. Acrid thermogenesis. And why did you never tell me that you were related to the X-2 hero? Conjuring Gamer. WDTU. Acrid thermogenesis. WTF. Conjuring Gamer. We don't talk about Undertow. Acrid thermogenesis. Acrid thermogenesis. Fair enough. Acrid thermogenesis. And in my defense. Acrid thermogenesis. Half and half has been glaring at you for messing ever. Acrid thermogenesis. F. Why can't I type today? Conjuring Gamer. You do realize you used to be worse to me, right? Conjuring Gamer. And I can certainly handle myself against Todoroki in a fight, if that's what you were worried about. Conjuring Gamer. Or I could have just ran with Illusion Barrier. Acrid thermogenesis. I don't know, man. Acrid thermogenesis. Stop busting my nub, or whatever trolls say. Acrid thermogenesis. I'm sorry. Acrid thermogenesis. F. It'll say it without the stupid accent, so you know I'm serious. Acrid thermogenesis. I'm sorry, Deku. Conjuring Gamer. Don't worry, I forgive you. Conjuring Gamer. I was just messing with you. Acrid thermogenesis. Well, duck you then. I chuckled a bit. Annoying Kakin was fun sometimes. Uraraka Ochako. Hatsune. Well, this is awkward. Tokoyami Fumikage. I think you four-caught to 4 and move us 4-om, 4-pa 4-tie. Mid-4-aya. Duck, Kakin muttered. What? Sue asked. Uraraka snickered, then spat out a long strand of green hair. I walked down the corridor to the stadium. It was time for the first match. I took a deep breath, then felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around to see All Might in his emaciated form. Good luck, young Midoriya. I nodded. Thank you, All Might. I turned back to the opening and walked into the stadium. And on one side, Mike Sensei shouted over the roar of the crowd, "We have the king of magic, Midoriya Izuku." I walked up to the stage and saw Shinso emerge from the other side of the stadium. And on the other, we have the only student from Gen Ed to make it to the 3rd round. Master of the Mind, Shinsu Hitoshi. I looked at Shinsu's level. Give him hell, kid. LV-19. Shinso Hitoshi. No hard feelings, right, Midoriya? He asked me. I shook my head, careful not to talk. To be honest, I was looking forward to seeing what he'd thought of for me. Without further ado, let's start. Shinso smirked. The roar of the crowd died away, replaced by a ringing in my ears. He started to walk forward, and I heard the sound of his footsteps over the ringing. It was very loud, almost like the sound was reverberating all around me. Before I could react, I felt like all my sense of balance was lost, and I had an extreme feeling of nausea. I clutched my stomach, trying my best not to topple over. Neat, huh? He asked me, his voice amplified like the sound of his footsteps. I grimaced. My head was swimming. I got the idea from my mother's quirk. She can disturb people's inner ears with the sound of her voice, making them disoriented. I figured I could mimic that with sound magic. Judging from your reaction, I did pretty well. I braced myself on an air platform and gathered my thoughts. It looked like he was taking his time moving because he had to concentrate on the spell, but it seemed like he was starting to get more comfortable, so that might change soon. Tactician told me that the effect the spell had on me manifested in the status effect Dizzy. I used healing hands on my head, causing the nausea and balance loss to fade. The ringing stayed, though. It felt more like it was the medium for Dizzy than a part of it. Sonia, I thought. No use, Izuku, she replied. Can't work with magic sound. Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be that easy. I kept up the healing hands with my left hand, though I knew that meant I couldn't use it for any magic aside from the healing spell. It looks like you figured out a way around that. I wonder if you can keep it up while fighting me, though. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers at me. I flash-stepped out of the way of the resulting shockwave thanks to the improved reaction time my high DX gave me, but crashed into the ground when I was struck with dizzy again in midair. I groaned. Flash-stepping shouldn't have caused healing hands to fail. Looks like your healing spell can't keep up with it when you go that fast. That's probably it, I muttered as I started to get up. I noticed my mistake when the ringing in my ears stopped. For a second, I felt very faint, like I was about to pass out. I almost fell back down. The feeling passed after a second, with a pop-up saying that the status effect brainwashed had failed to affect me because of Gamer's Mind. Shinso smirked. So you are immune to my quirk, but it still stuns you for a second. The ringing returned, and with it dizzy. I noticed that my healing hands had slipped when Shinso tried to use his quirk on me. I put them back up, keeping both hands up this time. Limit break, I shouted, the glow of my healing hands getting brighter. Healing fists. I jumped at Shinso. Wait, what? Shinso said, then just barely managed to duck out of the way of my punch. The effort broke the spell, making my hearing return to normal. Right, that's it. He took a deep breath and screamed at me with sonic magic. The shockwave hit me dead on, blowing me back a bit even though I'd braced myself. I retaliated with a blast of wind strong enough to blow him to the edge of the arena. With a small gesture, I had Dune shift the ground under him, dumping him out of bounds. Damn it. The match is over. Mike Sensei shouted. Man, what was up with Midoriya? Did he eat a bad omelet or something? If I had to guess, Shinso did something, Aizawa Sensei said. He either found a new use for his quirk or made some sort of disorienting spell. If it was magic, wouldn't there have been some sort of glow? Not all magic glows, Mike. You know this. You've literally used non-glowing magic. I walked over to Shinso. Sorry about that, I said as I offered him my hand. He took it and pulled himself up. I'll consider it payback for the ear assault. Speaking of which, how are your ears? Would probably suck if I deafened you. I gave him thumbs up. I'm good, thanks to my healing hands. Though you might want to test it again with me or Shizenji-sensei around, if you're really worried about that. He nodded. Probably a good idea. After making sure that Shinso wasn't hurt from when I knocked him down, I went back to the section of the stands where Class 1A was supposed to sit. Ojiro was waiting for me by the door. Midoriya, he shouted. Are you okay? I grinned. Yeah, I'm fine. Deku, Kakin shouted from his seat. What was that? Shinso can use sonic magic now, I told him, then sat down next to him. What you saw was him wreaking havoc on my inner ears. He chuckled. So that was probably more difficult than your next fight's gonna be. What do you mean be that? Kakin snorted. We both know that between your ungodly physical defense and your elemental magic, the only person in the tournament who can match you in a straight fight is me. Maybe also Uraraka, but I'm gonna destroy her. Half and half. His name is Todoroki, I reminded him. Kakin rolled his eyes. Todoroki might come close if he actually applies himself, but all he's really done is throw ice around. I'm guessing from what we already know about magic and quirks that while Half and Half's quirk has ice magic acting to freeze thing, the ice itself isn't magical, meaning you can use an elemental on it easy. And even if not, can he really put up with your nonsense as well as I can? Yeah, I guess you're right. And even though Tape Dispenser, Zero, might have a chance of winning against Half and Half, can he even do a thing to you? I thought about that for a moment. It's probably arrogant of me to say that there's no way for him to beat me, but it isn't really likely, is it? No chance of that happening. Now shut up, the match is about to start. Todoroki and Zero walked into the arena. As soon as the match started, Zero shot tape at Todoroki, wrapping him up. It looked like he was about to throw him, but Todoroki, without even moving, created the biggest wall of ice I'd ever seen with his quirk, obstructing my view of the arena. It was so big that it cast a shadow over half the stadium, and Mafuyu told me the ice actually extended far above the top of the stadium. I scowled, my breath fogging up from how close the ice was to my face. Kakin, I ordered, right? He summoned Pyra, and they started warming up the suddenly very cold area with light streams of fire. You might want to keep the water from dripping on anyone, too, Kakin suggested. Sue just shivered and sluggishly buried her head in Uraraka's chest. Karo. Uraraka wrapped her arms around her gently. Right your frog. Kakin sighed, then sent a few more flame strings around Sue. Deku, can you leave your water elemental here? I nodded, summoned rain, then slapped the metal railing meant to prevent us from falling onto the field. A microsecond's worth of lightning embodiment later, and I was on the other side of the railing and far enough to the left that I didn't crash face first into ice. I stormed up to the arena, but looked toward Midnight before actually getting up on it. She was iced over. Go right ahead. Mimi, Midoriya, she shivered. I nodded and summoned Mafuyu and Blaze, who started helping Midnight, then stomped over to Todoroki. That was excessive, even for you, I shouted, then shoved him away from Zero, who he would try to melt out of the ice. With a gesture, I ejected him from the ice, grabbed him, then started warming him up. I checked up his sleeves and pant legs with probably a little more force than was actually necessary to make sure he didn't have any frostbite, then turned back to Todoroki when Blaze took over warming Zero up. You do realize that your ice can kill, right? He looked remorseful. Good. I was going to thaw him. I sighed. I don't just mean Zero. He tilted his head. What? I stared at him incredulously for a moment before waving my hand in the general direction of the giant iceberg in the middle of the stadium. I'm aware that I used a bit too much force, but I made sure to stop the ice before it reached the audience. And if you didn't? I demanded. If you overdid it so much as a bit more, then people would have died. Hell, if anyone in the audience has a quirk that makes them more susceptible to the cold, then they could be going into shock as we speak. I've got an elemental keeping an eye on Sue and Kakins, keeping everyone warm, but that's still an issue. Todoroki blinked. Oh, why did you do that? I was annoyed from talking to my father, and I took it out on Zero. I apologize. I clenched my fist. Limit break. Sublimation, I intoned. My arm buzzed with one for all, and steam rose from it. Without even looking away from Todoroki, I swung my arm back, shattering the iceberg into powder with a combination of ice magic and sheer force. The powder was quickly vaporized by the vapor magic I'd also put into my punch. I sympathize with you, Todoroki, I really do. But if this is the way you're going to act, then I'm going to beat you. With that said, I turned around and walked through the mist I'd created to get back to my seat. With DX only a little out of human bounds, I vaulted up the wall to the stands, nimbly pivoting on the railing and landing back in the chair I was sitting in before. Deku, Kakin whistled. How's Tsu? I asked Uraraka. Uraraka stroked Tsu's hair gently. Tsu-chan fell asleep. Should I wake her? I shook my head. It's probably best to let her sleep, at least for now. I turned back to Kakin and observed him. Do you need me to restore your MP? I asked him. He shrugged. Normally I wouldn't take you up on that, but I've seen Uraraka training, and I'm pretty sure that if she was 100% and I wasn't, then I would lose. Uraraka beamed. Wow, Kakin. That was basically a compliment, and it wasn't backhanded or anything. Kakin rolled his eyes, though he had a small grin on his face. Curse you, round face. Sue groaned, then rubbed her eyes. This isn't Ochako-chan's. She picked her head off my shoulder and looked at the seats next to us. Where did Ochako-chan and Kakin go? What happened? You fell asleep after Todoroki gave an overly forceful display of his quirk, and I thought it would probably be better if you were allowed to sleep it off, I said. It's almost time for their match. She hummed. Do you mind telling me what happened while I was out? Oh yeah, sure. First there was Kaminari versus Shiozaki from Class 1B. Tsu nodded. Kaminari shot a lightning bolt at Shiozaki, which she blocked with her vines before tangling Kaminari up. Kaminari managed to make some sort of lightning buzzsaw, but Shiozaki just wrapped him up in more vines until he stopped. After that, it was Ida versus Hatsum. Wasn't she the support course girl you teamed up with? Sue asked. Yep, that's her. Their fight was. I try to think of how best to describe it. It was interesting. A little on the long side, though. What happened, Karo? I chuckled a bit. Well, Hatsum kind of took the thing over as a sort of advertisement for her support gear, then forfeited the match when she was done. Sue snorted. Yeah. Then it was Ishido against Aoyama. Ashido managed to take out Aoyama's belt, but lost still when Aoyama shot her with a laser. He looked uneasy afterwards, though. I think his belt might be needed to stabilize his quirk. That's not good. I nodded. Next was Yaoyorozu and Tokoyami. Yaoyorozu made a shield, but Tokoyami overwhelmed her pretty fast. Finally, Kirishima versus Tetsu from 1B. I might be thinking of someone else, but aren't their quirks the same? I shrugged. Similar, but not the same. There are definitely differences between making your skin hard and making your skin metal. That being said, though, the two of them looked like they were pretty evenly matched, so their fight also dragged on for a bit. Who won? When they figured out that they would draw in a physical match, they started using magic. Turns out Kirishima is slightly better at earth magic than Tetsu. She tapped her chin. And now it's about to be Kakin against Uraraka-chan, right? Yeah. She looked a bit excited. This is going to be so anime. I laughed. I know, right? Sue sighed. It's a good thing I woke up when I did. Yeah, I agreed. Maybe you should get some kind of heating system in your costume? I know that thing on Todoroki's back on his hero costume heats him up when he gets too cold. I was thinking about asking the support company for something like that for the winter. It's probably not a bad idea to get it as soon as you can. I mean, you'd just pass out from an ice quirk. She nodded. Fair enough. I'll talk to Shota about it when all this is over. And now, Mike Sensei shouted. Here we have the last match of the first round, and it sure seems like a doozy. On one side, we have Bakugo Katsuki, Quirk Explosion, Aizawa Sensei said. On the other, Uraraka Ochako, Quirk Zero Gravity. They both have powerful quirks and potent magic to back them up. Watch out for debris, folks, cause the arena is totally getting wrecked. I looked at Kakin and Uraraka's levels as they walked to the arena. Megalo Strike Back. LV-44. Uraraka Ochako. The Phoenix. LV-45. Bakugo Katsuki. I activated Hawkeye because I did not want to miss anything. Bakugo grinned as he regarded his opponent. No holding back. Right, Uraraka? Uraraka nodded, finishing up her stretches. Not at all. The dust by her feet stirred slightly. Bakugo punched his palm, a small explosion escaping from his fist. This might be your only round, but like hell it won't be a round to remember. Uraraka got into a fighting stance, Bakugo following suit. Thanks, but bold of you to assume I'll lose. Right, I want you two to remember that there are spectators, so try not to hit the stand with too many giant rocks, Midnight said. And remember that you should probably try to avoid killing or otherwise permanently harming your opponent. It goes without saying, yes, but I've seen you both wreck things, so better to be safe than sorry. I got it, Bakugo assured her. Right, let's do this. Uraraka shouted, fire in her eyes. Okay, begin. Both combatants exploded with power on cue. Bakugo a raging fire that caused the ground under him to glow red, and Uraraka a pink aura that cracked the concrete like a hammer blow, the resulting debris floating into the air weightlessly. Uraraka shot her hand out in front of her, shooting the rocks at Bakugo. He erected a wall of fire that exploded the chunks of concrete before fire dashing at Uraraka. When he was right in front of her, he tried to explode her. Uraraka blocked, blue sparks dancing across her arms. The force of the explosion hit her, was absorbed by her arms, and released back at Bakugo, enhanced by a wave of pink magic. The two were blown back, and Uraraka's skin steamed and tore from the backlash. Her sports uniform top was annihilated, though thankfully not the black tank top underneath. A wave of green magic washed over Uraraka as she cast Regeneration. Bakugo conjured 2 fireballs and threw them at Uraraka. She countered by throwing a pink ball of mana that sucked up the fire before exploding in front of Bakugo. Though he blocked the initial explosion, the pink mana clung to him. His eyes widened as the world seemed to shift, and what was behind him moments before was suddenly down. He managed to recover and start flying before he fell out of bounds, but by then Uraraka was ready with her next trick. She'd laid her hands on the ground, and blue sparks danced across the ground around Bakugo. It shattered, the rubble floating weightlessly for a moment before gravitating towards Bakugo. He cursed, then exploded in a wave of fire that destroyed the rubble. The pink aura around him faded away, and he started to fall to the ground before pivoting in midair to land on his feet. He laughed, then flew at Uraraka again. Uraraka grinned and started flying towards him as well. They clashed, fire against gravity, releasing waves of force as they rebounded off each other. They smashed against each other a few more times, each time sending shockwaves that cracked the ground beneath them and battered the audience with heavy gales. After their clashes, they flew to opposite sides of the now very ruined arena, floating several meters above the ground. As if by an unheard agreement, they both raised their hands skyward, gathering balls of their preferred element. A few tense seconds passed, Bakugu's fireball growing into a raging typhoon of flames, and Uraraka's pink gravity bolt darkening to an almost black color. They simultaneously hurled their attacks at each other. When the two powerful spells clashed, the inferno exploded into a blinding sun, while the black hole imploded, drawing in all of the fire, and also all of the debris loosened up in their clash. The two attacks merged into a single, blinding point before exploding with the force of a supernova. Even though the two combatants blocked, they were simultaneously launched backwards, thankfully not hitting anyone when they crashed. Midnight blinked. Dang, I guess that's a draw. Midoriya, if you don't mind, you should probably make sure neither of them died. I gaped. They're both idiots. I muttered. That was hot. Sue croaked. I turned my head. Oh. Sue's face was red, and mostly not in a crushed blush way. Are you okay? I asked. She looked sunburned. Water, she muttered, her eyes somehow wider than normal. I took a few water bottles out of my inventory, then cast healing hands and regeneration on her. Just to be safe, I made a few regeneration orbs and placed them on my seat as I got up and summoned Rain to check on the other spectators. Hopefully nobody was as bad as Sue, considering we were in front, but I'll go check up on the others. I turned to Sound and went straight to where Uraraka crashed. Kakin was probably better off because his quirk made him resistant to heat and sudden forces as a required side effect of his quirk, which was why I was prioritizing Uraraka. Thankfully, it didn't look like she was too hurt, even though she'd crashed into a wall hard enough to crack it. Hey, Deku-kun. She waved weakly. Please do not move until I give you the okay, I said, then started poking her leg. It looked like she could feel it. I don't know how you survived that in one piece. She grinned. Sho taught me some body strengthening magic. It was actually what I based Repulse on. I started healing her. She might not have broken her spine, thankfully, but she had bruises all over her body, especially her back. Her skin was torn in several places, and she had so many hairline fractures all over her bones. Ow, thanks. Did I win? Tai, I said. Sorry. She winced. Don't worry. I'm pretty sure that this was the most impressive of the first round matches. And there's probably going to be a tiebreaker. I finished healing her and offered her a hand. Once I'd helped her up, I said, right, I should probably check on Kakin now, and Sound teleported off. Kakin was somehow barely hurt. I knew he was damage-resistant as a necessity to not tear himself apart with his quirk, but I didn't think he was that damage-resistant. I was more concerned with the fact that Endeavor was standing over him. It was an impressive match, young man, Endeavor said. I see promise in you. Kakin snorted. Yeah, you flamey one. Endeavor glowered at him. Your attitude, however, could use some work. Really? Kakin glared at him. My attitude needs work? Funny coming from you, Mr. I throw fiery tantrums whenever. Kakin? I interrupted him. Even if you feel fine, I should probably take a look at you before you get into a shouting match. Kakin bit his tongue. Fine. Let's go, Deku. He dragged me away from Endeavor, to an exit where we could talk in peace. I still had Sonya throw up a sound barrier, though. I get it, he sighed. Don't get him suspicious about what we know. I healed up the few wounds Kakin had. Yeah, but at the same time, I don't blame you for getting heated up. He glared at me. Was that a pun? Right, you should probably get back to the field. I started to walk off. Kakin tried to grab me, but my shoulder dissolved before he could grab it. Deku, get back here, you idiot. I grinned at him as the rest of my body turned to Sound. A few minutes later, after I'd helped out a few spectators who were in need of water, Sensei had formed a table out of cement on an island of restored ground in the middle of the destroyed arena. The tiebreaker will be an arm wrestling match. Midnight Sensei announced. You may use your quirks and magic. However, you aren't allowed to break the table to throw your opponent off balance. Get ready. Kakin and Uraraka put their elbows on the table and grabbed each other's hands. Their eyes locked, the looks on both their faces intense. I'm going to step back a bit. Midnight muttered. Begin, she shouted after getting to what she judged to be a safe distance. It looked like Uraraka tried to weaken Kakin by making him heavier, but he used a sort of modified fire dash to resist it. He responded by using a jet of fire coming from the back of his hand. Uraraka put up a good fight with what I can now see was some surprisingly heavy-duty, strengthening magic that I decided to ask her or Aizawa-sensei about later, but in the end it looked like her increasing Kakin's weight acted against her. Kakin slammed Uraraka's hand into the table, hard enough for the table to shatter, but thankfully it looked like she defended at the last second, causing a secondary shock to further ruin the table so. Hopefully her hand wasn't too hurt. Midnight Sensei blinked and swished her whip. Well, it looks like the winner is Bakugu Katsuki. Kakin grinned and offered a hand to Uraraka. When he helped her up, I noticed that she winced a bit. I sent a message to Kakin telling him to go to Shizenji Sensei and take Uraraka with him. Well, that was a pretty awesome round. Mike Sensei shouted. And after Cementas is done fixing the arena, we'll get on with round 2. Give it up for Cementas, everybody. I walked down the hallway. It was already time for my fight with Todoroki. I took a deep breath and thought over my strategy again. The air chilled slightly as I prepared myself for the match ahead, my breath visible. Hello, boy. A voice interrupted my thoughts, and I almost walked face first into a giant chest. I flinched and looked up at the flaming man who was standing in front of me. Todoroki Enji, I said. You know, you remind me of All Might, he told me. I clenched my fist. Even with the gamer's mind keeping me level-headed, I was very tempted to punch him in the face. I'll take that as a compliment, I ground out. Right. Well, I think they're expecting me. Good talk. I started to walk away from him. You know, my Shoto is meant to surpass All Might. Ping. Something inside me snapped. The air around me became frigid cold as I turned around to glare at him. He flinched. Listen here, I growled and jabbed my finger at his throat. My eyes felt odd for some reason. I don't know what you did to Shoto, I lied, but anyone with eyes and a brain can see that he hates you. Do you know something I was able to pick up from what little he's said to me? India Enji was shaking. He thinks of his left side as a curse, and especially after what you just said to me, I'm certain that you're the reason why. I turned back around. I'm going to make Shoto use his left side, but it won't be for you. It'll be for him. Now goodbye. With that said, I stormed off. While I walked to the exit, I checked out the text box that I heard when I was yelling at Enji. I muttered. That's interesting, but I don't think I should use without testing a lot first. A skill has been created by unlocking one of the hidden quirks of One for All. By directing your wrath at a deserving target, the skill Fear has been created. So, this was the end of part 2 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.